Hello everybody, this is Ronar and we're back from our Gatecrasher mission. Here in the HQ you might start noticing that things are a little bit different. Maybe just a little bit. But let's begin. So I've gone through the liberty of skipping all the cutscenes so you guys don't have to watch through all of that.
Yes,
Start with our research over here. The first thing you should always be researching is activate recovered shiv units. This is instant. You will just get this automatically.
I do find that
Head into
area of
Geoscape and
research
just
to be
pick that
among
up.
the more intriguing options available. We'll begin
And you
work
can do this
immediately.
twice.
I'll send
Now,
word
the
when
shiv
the
unit, if you've
complete
played
research
XCOM
developed.
1, you'll
These
know that this is
will
kind
likely
of
prove
like
crucial to our ongoing efforts, Commander.
a remote activated weapon. It's just a tank that is not living. And here, I'll go show you guys what that is.
I will begin our research immediately. Another important step forward in our research.
Shiv.
Commander,
Here's
we
a shiv.
currently have no new supplies coming
So
in.
here's the shiv. It's
We'll
just a
need to
remote
seek out
weapon.
new means of
Early
replenishing
game, it's
our
actually quite
resources.
solid. 7 HP. It also gets 2 points of ablative HP, which is that orange
I have
bonus
to hand it
HP
to
that you
them.
saw on
What
the
these
last
recruits
stream
lack in
or
experience,
last video.
They make up for in grit.
They got 70 aim, 1 armor. They're not like super tanky, but they are considered quite tanky for the early game. But as soon as the enemies start upgrading even just a little bit, these things are gonna start dying really quickly. And they won't be able to take like repeated hits from even the weaker enemies. However, they're an excellent way to pad your roster when everyone else is on vacation days because they're all taking huge amounts of wounds. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, you'll notice up here that they do come with their own little gremlin. However, they're not actually able to hack things with this. So you can't grab objectives with this. Keep that in mind. I've made that mistake a few times. They do come with the ability to medkit. They can use aid protocol to defend their teammates. They can use scanning protocol to get a vision of the surrounding areas. And they also come with bulldoze protocol, which lets them run through walls just like the Spark does in vanilla. And they're also able to jump up using jet boosters underneath them. It's kind of comedic because of how loud it is. You wonder how these things don't break concealment immediately as soon as the mission begins. These shivs do not come with any rank ups. They can't gain EXP, and all they have is their starting set of abilities. But that's all you guys really need to know about the shivs. The next thing we'll do is we're going to be doing our last bit of research. Resistance comms is the one that I recommend like 99% of the time. If you don't know what you're doing and you have no idea what you want to do, just do resistance comms. It allows you to contact the second region, and that's very, very good.
I'll have a report assembled as soon as the
In terms of
research is
facilities, we're just going to immediately build a GTS. This is my personal preference. The GTS is not as useful in Beyond Legendary because you can't train up your own classes immediately. However, you do have the ability to buy a training thingy that gives you 75% more kill EXP, and experience is a very premium resource in Beyond Legendary. So we're going to be building this first.
Construction initiated.
I think Dad would have been proud of what
And
we're
now
doing
here we go.
For the first time in a long time, we're actually a threat to the aliens, and they know it.
27 days for our
Now
Frost
we just have to
Purifier for
make
getting
all
shot
those people in
down
the
on
colonies
the last
remember what
mission.
we're fighting for.
I looked back at the
father
video
didn't die
footage,
so we
and
could
I think
become
it was
a
like
race
less
of
than a
towering
2%
test
chance that he
subjects
got
for the
one shot by
aliens
that
to toy
Advent
with.
Gunner.
We
So
just have to
that's
get the people's attention.
quite unfortunate for this guy. But let's start by looking through all of our soldiers. I'm going to start looking at the rookies that are promoted here. So first soldier over here, Mr. Reed. I think Mr. Reed over here is going to go into Hell Knight. Generally when it comes to sharpshooter classes or classes that rely on accuracy, 65 aim is average accuracy for a rookie, so if I rely on accuracy, I would prefer them to have like 70 aim or higher. You can have up to 75 aim at max and 55 aim at minimum. Probably don't want this guy as a sharpshooter. Gorilla's not a bad option. Gorilla is a shotgun ambush type unit, and mobility is quite a good stat for the Gorilla, so this is actually not a bad pick, but Hell Knight is just a little bit better in my opinion. It's a very tanky class and has lots of utility tied up in its abilities, but I will be picking the Hell Knight here. I'll go through all of their perks once we finish ranking them all up. We'll just go through them one at a time. Mao Chao over here. Let's take a look at what you've got. Mao Chao has access to Freebooter, Rook, and Gorilla. Rook is a class that I am a huge fan of, so I will probably be going Rook. It's a class that is tanky, it can throw very powerful smoke grenades, and it focuses on Overwatch for its offense. Average aim, slightly above average mobility, and decent enough health, slightly below average dodge, but nothing too bad. I think this is a pretty good Rook class right here. I will be going there. Got ourselves our Rook over here, good. Then after that, let's take a look at Bloody Tear over here. Bloody Tear is another 17 mobility soldier, so above average accuracy, or not accuracy, mobility, and below average accuracy. We've got Specialist. They have decent hack stats, so Specialist is an option, although I'm not as big of a fan of the Specialist in Beyond Legendary. The other two options are Vanguard and Arsonist. These two are pretty good options for the soldier. Low accuracy pairs pretty well with shotguns, because with shotguns you're just at point blank most of the time and you'll have 100% accuracy that way. And the mobility allows you to get into position a lot easier. Vanguards are also a very tanky unit. They hold shields and shotguns. Quite a fun class to play with. I've played with it a few times before in my stream runs, but I think I'm gonna aim for the Arsonist. Arsonist does require accuracy, so it's unfortunate that your aim is kind of low. But with that amount of mobility, you should be able to get the flanks with your flamethrower and be able to burn things. Burn in Ted Jam and Long War the Chosen is incredibly powerful. It's very different from vanilla. In vanilla, you use flamethrowers on things like chrysalids and faceless, and then they can't use their melee attacks. In Long War, flames actually prevent enemies from doing everything else besides melee attacks. It's kind of like a complete 180. But it's essentially a stun that can possibly last longer if they run through the fires while trying to escape from you. It's incredibly powerful, does a lot of damage, and just overall, many things in this mod pack are weak to it. Highly recommend taking a couple of flamethrower classes if you have that opportunity. And finally, Isbal over here, another low accuracy soldier. Destroyer class uses a sniper rifle, so they kind of need accuracy. Heavy class uses a rocket launcher, they also kind of need accuracy. Arsonist also needs accuracy, but I really like flamethrower builds, so I'm going to be going for another Arsonist. Arsonists have an ability that stacks with each other, and I'm going to showcase that as we explain the rest of their perks. But first, let's go through our soldiers and all of their perks one at a time. Starting with the Hell Knight, I think. Alright, so our Hell Knight over here. Forged in the blackest pits of hell, bearing ceaseless wrath and impenetrable will, rain, fury, fire, and eternal damnation upon all who stand against you. Imagine you just like recruit a rookie and the first thing they promote into is whatever this is. Oh man. This is part of a series of units that are like based on, I think, like some sort of fantasy game, like maybe D&D or something. I think they have a lot of perks that are from D&D, like their I thought they had some perks referencing D&D. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a different class that has that. Alright, but anyways, this guy has the Marauder perk. If you've played baseline Long War 2, this would basically be the equivalent of Light 'em Up, or if you've played Long War 1, you'll kind of know. It's the perk that makes it so that your shots only take one action and they won't end your turn. So if you're standing still, you're allowed to shoot twice. Dervish over here is once per turn, killing an enemy reduces all your ability cooldowns by 1 turn. So this will help him reset his cooldowns. And these guys have a decent amount of cooldown based perks like transposition and stuff. If you're going access for Void Rift and such, that will also be quite a nice thing to have. Shield Bash, just a melee attack with the shield. And Fortress. This is probably one of the best things that you can have early on. They're immune to fire, poison, acid, frost, and explosive damage. When you're fighting against Purifiers, those things are really scary, and these guys can just get right next to them and blow them up without any fear at all. And overall, just a very good perk to have. You're immune to Viper Poison, there's other species of aliens that can inflict poison and such. Psycho Technician can equip a Psy-Amp in the specialty slot. Unlock specialty slot if not already available. I'll go through their equipment right after we look at their squatty perks. And Psychic Reload. After using a psionic ability, reload 1 ammo. That's particularly good with a special variant of the shotgun that is introduced in TED Jam. I'll be going through that right now. So, when you look at the soldier's armor and equipment, you'll see that they have a slot for armor, primary weapon, secondary weapon, and they also have access to 3 utility item slots. All units get this, unlike in vanilla, which I think they only get 1 or 2 slots. These guys in particular get a specialty slot for a Psi underlay. Don't think too hard about this. This is just a Psi amp with a different look. This is used for their psionic abilities, if we decide to teach them any. In terms of utility item slots, I generally like to go for a ceramic plating, some sort of grenade. Early on, frag grenades are great for killing drones. After that, flashbangs to deal with sectoids because they are quite a big threat in Beyond Legendary with their triple action capabilities. And finally, a medkit usually. Something along those lines. I mix and match depending on what I need for the mission and what the rest of the squad has. RPG has been nerfed quite a lot, and you only get access to one of these now.
I never got around to asking you, Doctor, but what exactly?
But the RPG is mainly for, in my opinion, it's best on stealth units. You can engage on a group of enemies that are still clumped together with the RPG. It's quite powerful if you use it that way. These two are not actual rocket launchers, these are just rocket ammunition. You put these on people that have rocket launchers already equipped. This guy, of course, doesn't have one.
And I'd say we're lucky to have you with us.
And I'll go through the rest of the items as they become more relevant. I don't want to info dump too hard all these different things. Kevlar armor is the default. We don't really have any other options. These are just visual changes, but they're all about the same thing. The shotgun is going to have a couple variants. So you'll have access to the, well, what is this called again? The TLP, Tactical Legacy Pack shotgun. This is a shotgun that just has a little bit more crit chance tied to it, 5% more. It has a permanent laser sight attached to it. Nothing too different between this one and this one besides that 5 crit chance. There's now also the hunting shotgun though. So if you look at the baseline shotgun, this does 4 to 6 damage, 2 critical damage, clip size of 4. Nothing particularly special, but looking at this is 5 to 7 damage. Just a straight up damage upgrade to this thing. Same amount of critical damage. A little bit less crit chance though, so it does fall behind in that sense, and same clip size. Now, even though this does more damage than the shotgun, there is a caveat. If you look over there, let me just try to get his shield to not block your sight. Single reload and full reload. So in vanilla, you can reload with 1 action. However, with the hunting shotgun, with 1 action, you can only reload 1 shot on this gun. You have to use both actions if you want to do a full reload. So in a sense, you're basically losing out on the ability to shoot repeatedly and shoot often that the shotgun has with the hunting shotgun. Overall, I don't think that's as big of a loss as it might seem. Overall, the damage output is just much more valuable, so I do tend to use hunting shotguns on everyone that can actually use it. I highly recommend it. That extra point of damage is also very key in killing certain enemies in Beyond Legendary. I'm a huge fan of taking the hunting shotgun despite the reload limitations. Later on, as the game goes on, your soldiers will have the ability to shoot twice, and that's when you start thinking, okay, maybe I don't want the hunting shotgun as much as the baseline shotgun. But until you get to that point, the hunting shotgun is just strictly better. The next item that you can put on this guy over here is the Templar Shield Mark 1. There are 2 types of shields. This class gets the Templar Shield variant, which basically is a type of shield where you can activate One for All. One for All is essentially just hunkering down, except instead of giving yourself bonus defense, you lose 30 defense and you gain bonus HP. This particular shield gives, I think, about 5 bonus HP, so you can take like 1 extra hit from an enemy with this. Overall, a very powerful type of item. Being able to regenerate shield HP like that over and over again allows a soldier to repeatedly tank hits, and you guys will see this in action during our next few missions. It's very powerful, and I don't think I can really do it justice by describing it until I showcase how abusable this is, which is one of the reasons why I immediately clicked Hell Knight when I saw that he got this. Now, if you guys have only played vanilla, you'll notice that there are 3 lines of perks right up here, as well as 7 ranks to pick from. This is very different from vanilla. And if any perks have this line between them, that means you have to take this one before you're allowed to pick this one. Down here is a bunch of randomized perks. These are different between every single Hell Knight. This will always be the same with every Hell Knight, but this will be different. And these perks are picked from a pool of randomized perks that are specific to each class. So the Hell Knight can possibly get Unscarred and other types of perks down here, but it's not always going to be the same. These randomized perks are kind of what make each individual unit different from each other. No two Hell Knights will be alike just because of these perks down here, which I think is really fun. And this costs ability points, so you'll see up here there's Soldier AP. Each time they rank up, they will gain a little bit of AP. At average combat intelligence, you can get approximately 42 AP at maximum rank, which is enough to kind of learn multiple perks over here, like a 35 and a 10.1, or like maybe you can do like a 20.1 and a 25.1. It's enough to learn like just some combination of perks down here. If you have higher combat intelligence, you can learn more stuff, and if you have lower combat intelligence, you can learn less stuff. If you want to make this soldier into a super soldier, so for example, if I really badly wanted to take like all of this is like 55 points total, but with low I'm only getting like, like 35 points or so. If we want to do that, we will have to eat into our total team pool of AP. It'll make a little bit more sense what I'm talking about as we play through the campaign. For now, we'll just leave it at that. Over here, you can see that I can mark stuff. This is actually a feature in Long War of the Chosen. You can mark up which perks you want to take. And that way, when you're doing other things and after like a set amount of missions have passed, you don't forget everything that you planned out for your soldiers, so we'll be making good use of this ability here. Now, I think the best way to explain each class is probably to go through each row of perks rather than go through one rank at a time, because the rows are meant to kind of work with each other, and I'll showcase any detours that we might take. Now, the first set of perks that I'm going to talk about is actually going to be probably middle row, I think. So the first perk over here is Transposition. This is the one that we are going to personally be taking for the soldier. Swap locations with someone else. Very powerful perk, works against the Chosen, and it's one of the few ways that you can displace the Chosen. So I'm a huge fan of this perk. Allows you to kidnap enemies, and since this guy is going to be our tank, we can also put our tank into the middle of the enemy team. Next up, we're also going to be taking Time Shift. Transposition stuns enemies when swapping positions with them. This is basically just a stun on demand. I click on an enemy and I just automatically stun them. It's very powerful, very good, and I would always take this, no matter what, unless I have a different plan specifically with my other perks up here. But overall, I think if you're building a Hell Knight and you have no idea what you're doing, you can never go wrong with Transposition and Time Shift. This is just a very powerful combination. Next up over here, in the middle row we have Evil Gaze, Psychic. Summon the evil that lurks in the shadows, deals acid damage, and panics the target. This is actually quite good. Panicking targets is always a good thing. This uses a mental attack roll, and I believe this works against mechs. I could be wrong about that, maybe that's a different perk. But because mechs have really low will stat, because they're usually immune to psionic abilities, I believe this is one of the few things that can actually just absolutely wreck a mechanical unit. I could be wrong, it could be a different ability that I'm thinking of, but I'm pretty sure it's this one. The other option that we have here is Hasten Resolve. This is the one that I'm actually going to be picking for this guy. Using One for All will grant a non-movement action. And what's One for All, you might be asking? That is going to be the ability on the shield. Let's see if I can actually see this. Provide high cover to squad mates wherever you stand, gain minus 30 defense, so you're more likely to get shot at, but you also get, in this case, 5 bonus HP. It doesn't mention that here. But you get 5 shielding HP, so this HP does not put you in the medbay if that HP gets damaged. It's very powerful, and this allows us to shield before we take our shot, shield before we take our teleport, shield before we do just about anything that this guy does. It just gives us a free bonus non-movement action. And you guys will see how useful this comes in play once we start actually using this guy. If you're doing a tank build, this is kind of a mandatory thing to have. Now, if you notice that your guy's psi stat is really good, you can also opt to take Insanity. This is the same ability that the psionic units have that XCOM can train up. And in Long War, Insanity has a 1-turn cooldown, so basically you can't use it twice in 1 turn, but you can use it every single turn. So this is a great way for this soldier to get a bit of action economy out if you don't plan on taking the shield perk. I personally would just recommend taking the shield perk. It's really good. There's really no reason not to take it. But if you opt not to take this, you can take Insanity. This is quite powerful, and this combos with a couple of the other psionic abilities that they have up there. I'm going to be going Hasten Resolve, though, for this soldier's build. Now, next rank over here, we have access to Shotgun Finesse, Phase Walk, and Reflex. Now, for the tank build, Reflex is actually quite powerful. When fired upon, you gain 1 extra action on the next turn, triggers no more than once per turn, so you can have 3 actions on your next turn if you get shot at. And this guy's going to get shot at very often because of how he's going to be losing defense stat every time he activates his shield. Another big thing about this one is that it subtracts 15 penalty to critical hit chances. So a lot of the times when the enemies are shooting at you while you're in cover, they have like a 5% chance to crit, and it can always be really annoying when they get those like cheeky little 5% crits. This kind of just negates that and also makes it a bit harder to crit you even if they are flanking your soldier. Reflex is definitely not a bad option for your Hell Knight. If you feel like you need the extra mobility though, Shotgun Finesse is an excellent choice. 10 crit chance and 3 mobility while equipped with a shotgun. I think for this guy's build, I'm going one of these two. I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to go yet, but I'm leaning towards Shotgun Finesse. The other option down here is Phase Walk. I would pick this one if this person rolled a really low mobility stat. Like if they got like 13 mobility or maybe 14 mobility, you can consider taking Phase Walk. This is basically just a teleport on a cooldown. Very simple and straightforward. Now then, up here, we got Schism. Schism is mostly if you take Insanity. It's just like the vanilla perk also. You apply Rupture and you do a little bit of damage when you cast Insanity on your targets. It's actually quite solid. If you're okay with not taking Hasten Resolve, this would be the other choice of perks that I recommend. It's very powerful. I like it quite a bit whenever I'm playing my psionic units, and I see no reason why I wouldn't like it on the Hell Knight. Although I generally don't take this just because I really like Hasten Resolve into like mobility or tankiness. Sparkfire. Take a shot with your shotgun that sets the target on fire, dealing 2 to 4 damage per turn and detonates carried explosives. This is a very, very interesting perk. It sets the enemy on fire and destroys their explosives. Very high priority perk, I think, if you're not taking the Insanity or tank build. Well, I mean, it's the only other perk that you can take. But Tech Sergeant's a very good rank for these guys. The ability to set things on fire is really good. It doesn't say if it's guaranteed or not, but I'm assuming that the shotgun shot is a guaranteed burn if you can get it. And if you can do something like teleport next to an enemy, run next to an enemy, or swap next to an enemy, and then just spark fire them, you can disable very high priority threats with this. And also, even if you're not able to burn them, you can do things like blow up their explosives. So for example, if you're fighting against a mech, the mech can't be burned, but you can blow up all of its micro missiles, and this will apply shred too. So honestly, a really good perk also. If it weren't competing with hardened shields, that's going to be the one that we're taking here. Shields on the Hell Knight reduce damage taken. Here's the exact mass of it. But essentially, this guy is going to become a shield tank. So there's different ways you can tank in XCOM 2. You can tank using armor points, you can tank using shield, you can tank using dodge stat. This soldier is going to be an excellent shield tank. They're able to regenerate extra ablative HP over and over again, and they're able to reduce the damage that that shield takes. There's other classes out there that can also generate shields for their allies, so if you find any of those classes, they'll combo very well with the Hell Knight. Overall, a very, very powerful combo here. Reduces damage taken by up to 50%. Can't reduce damage by more than 50% of the current shield. So, with the ceramic plating, this gives 2 shield HP. Templar shield gives 5 shield HP, so this is a total of 7 shield HP, which means I believe we're able to reduce damage by up to 3 or 4 points of damage. In the early game, most enemies will only be doing like 4 damage anyway, so this pretty much negates most of their damage. I don't believe you can take it down to 0 though, so they'll always do at least 1 damage to you, but still, very powerful perk to just be able to have this guy standing out in the open and just taking hits over and over again. Finally, down over here, we got Void Rift. If you're doing the Psionic build, this kind of ties it all together. There's also Soulstorm. You would take this if you have the teleport perk, and you would teleport into the middle of the enemy team and just do this ability. It's a very cool ability. I've seen it before on the Psionic Troopers. Destroys cover, and it's great for just exposing a group of enemies. You just teleport in and just nuke all of their cover. Very interesting. And then finally, you have what I call coup de gracie. I know, all the French people are angry at me right now. Bonus to hit damage and critical chance with your shotgun against a disoriented, stunned, or panicking enemy. Basically, if the enemy is flashbanged, or if they're stunned, you're going to be able to do a lot more damage and critical chance. Very good. If the enemy is stunned, you can actually hit them from across the map. That 50 aim will go a long way. Because a lot of the times the shotgun will only have like 50% chance to hit against enemies that are like kind of mid-range and away. This makes it so that you can just hit things from a very safe distance with this guy. In terms of perks that I'm going to pick, I'm either going to be taking this one or this one. Let's take a look at the final set of perks over here. On the move, start each turn with an additional standard and movement actions, but mobility is reduced by 40%. This is honestly quite an interesting perk for our Hell Knight. Getting an additional movement action means, and standard action means you can move in, and you'll have 3 actions to do things. You can run behind a group of enemies and just shoot them 3 times with Marauder. You can swap with someone, move to a better position in the enemy backline, and then maybe cast your shield and then start shooting multiple times. There's lots of ways you can play this out. Honestly, a very interesting perk, and with 17 mobility, I'm actually heavily leaning towards on the move. The next perk over here is Combat Advance. Attack any enemy within movement range with your Error Templar Ballistic Shield CV has no ability descript name. Yes, that's one of the most powerful weapons in the game. Costs a single action point and doesn't end the turn. Grants a movement only action point on use. So essentially, what this basically means is you can run in, slap someone with your shield, then you'll have an extra action point to shoot them, and after that, because your shots don't end your turn with Marauder, you can shoot them and then run back out to safety. This is kind of like a repositioning type of tool that you can use if you want to do something like that. I'm not as big of a fan of this one, because when I'm playing with the Hell Knight, I kind of want to keep them in the enemy team, and I want to be able to activate things like One for All. When you activate the shield, you can no longer move, so that bonus movement point isn't as relevant for this guy. He mostly cares about moving in and staying in with his shields up, which is why I'm a little bit more leaning towards on the move. Finally, we got Slamfire over here. For the rest of the turn, whenever you get a critical hit with your shotgun, your actions are refunded, as a 4-turn cooldown, cannot be used after run and gun, and disables run and gun for the rest of the turn. This is such a fun perk. Basically, you just run in next to a boss enemy unit, you activate Slamfire and stack all the critical hit chance modifiers you can against them, and then you just start slamming them with shotgun shots over and over again until they're dead. Very fun concept for a perk, and our guy does actually have the ability to run this perk actually. He's got the mobility. If we are going to run this perk though, we would hopefully see a few more crit perks, and we do actually have a crit perk down here, interestingly. This guy actually has some very solid perks down here that combo with a lot of the stuff up here. Generally, when I'm deciding on which path I want to go with my soldiers, I usually pick it based on what's down here, and I'm going to go through everything down here. I'm already looking at these, and I'm very excited. But yeah, I think for this soldier, we're probably going to go something along the lines of this, maybe? I think we'll just do the ability to teleport, the ability to shield, the ability to run really fast, tankiness, extra crit chance, and probably the ability to slam fire. I'm thinking I'm leaning towards that, although I'll take a look down here and then maybe decide between this and on the move. If we are taking this perk up here, it also wouldn't hurt to take double time. This guy's mobility is quite high, so we could opt to take some of the side perks here, which I didn't go over earlier, so I'm going to go over them right now. So over here we got double time, grants a bonus move action this turn. Think of it as giving yourself a more flexible version of run and gun, essentially. You get to cover a bit more distance, and this scales better with units with high mobility, and this guy has a lot of mobility, so he can get away with that. Follow that up with Predator. Ranged attacks gain bonus aim and crit against enemies that are flanked or out of cover. If you guys are having trouble visualizing how relevant 15 aim and crit is, it's very relevant. Very, very powerful amounts of numbers stacked on that one perk. And this, if we do decide to take this instead of the usual stuff down here, we can actually get very close to 100% crit chance on Slamfire. There's a very high possibility I might consider this over the teleportation abilities, although I really do like the ability to stun with my teleports, so I'm still kind of hesitant about switching over to here. But if there was ever a time that I go for the top row here, this would be it probably. Down here we got Run and Slice. Move to and slice a target, uses one action and doesn't end the turn, but can only be used once per turn. Has a 4-turn cooldown that can be reset by using other melee perks. So we do not have any of the other melee perks that resets the Run and Slice. Keep an eye out for other classes that can use Run and Slice. This was primarily a knife perk, because all of these are perks given to knife users. Disarming Strike, Lacerate, Shadow Melt. You'll probably see this again, and some of these perks you'll actually see again. These perks are reused quite often throughout most of the mod pack. And yeah, this basically lets you dash up to an enemy, slice them or bash them with your shield, and then shoot them for free. It's basically a better version of run and gun in the early game. Very powerful. I say that if you have trouble with the early game and you need to really like try to push past your early game, this is not a bad perk to take. But I think overall the other perks scale a little bit better into the end game. Like stuns are just really good, or being able to crit combo with your Slamfire is also really good. Alright, so now that we're done looking at their baseline abilities, let's look down here. So they've got Guard Shift. Reduces the Hell Knight's defense by 5, but raises the squad's defense by the same amount. This is a good perk for a tank unit to take, because it makes the enemies more likely to shoot at the Hell Knight, just by a little bit. However, the Hell Knight comes with the One for All ability. The shield makes it so that they lose 30 defense. So essentially most enemies will be shooting at this guy already, so this is kind of unnecessary. Close and Personal confers 30% critical chance against adjacent targets. This is a very big crit chance bonus. Combine that with Predator, that's already a 45% crit chance. If we're flanking the target, that's another 40. So we already had 85% crit chance if we take Close and Personal and Predator, which is why I was considering to take Predator. And with that, if we can get 100% crit chance for our Slamfire, we can just repeatedly shoot things until they die. I'm kind of stuck because most of the time I try to do Slamfire builds, but this is one of the few times where we get a rare 17 mobility Hell Knight, so I'm also like kind of like wanting to take On the Move just for the extra movement points. I have to think about this a bit. I'm still not quite sure what I want to do with this guy yet. Conjure a cloud of poison that disorients foes in the initial area. Very good CC ability, but it costs points and we don't have a lot of points to spare. Bastion. Fortress can now provide immunity to nearby teammates. This is actually a very good perk. There's a lot of explosives and a lot of fire-using enemies in this mod pack. However, we do have a Rook on the team, and the Rook can do something very similar with smoke grenades, which I'll go over later. So I'm thinking that we won't be taking Bastion on this guy. Martyr's Purpose. Reduce ability cooldowns by 1 each time the Hell Knight is struck. This is perfect for a tank build, and if we're taking a lot of things that have cooldowns, like for example Slamfire, which has a 4-turn cooldown, this is not a bad choice actually. It also helps reset the cooldown on Transposition, which I believe is 3 turns, so it would actually be nice to have some form of cooldown reduction maybe. If we can spare the 25 points, I'm probably just going to eat up a bunch of XCOM AP just to like make this guy into a super soldier, because looking at this guy, he's kind of got the makings of like one of our endgame content type soldiers that can fight boss units very effectively. Next up, he's also got Close Encounters. Once per turn, gain a bonus action after taking a standard shot at with your primary weapon at an enemy within 4 tiles. Essentially, this just means get 2 shots if you're standing close to them. You can think of this as like a counterpart to Hit and Run, which is if you shoot a target while you're flanking them, you get an extra action. This one is if you're standing really close to the target, you get an extra action. I would argue this is slightly better than Hit and Run, because this allows you to take multiple shots against things that can't be flanked, such as mechs. And finally, we got Unscarred over here. When at full health, deal more and take less damage depending on armor tech. And I believe it is 3 less damage taken at max armor tech. So this combos with Hardened Shields to give our Hell Knight a lot of tankiness. Now normally with a tank unit, like if you're an armor tank or a dodge tank, you'll slowly take HP damage and this starts to become irrelevant. However, with a shield tank, you don't actually lose your main HP, you're losing shield HP, which means you'll be staying at full HP for a lot of the time. This guy is going to become like just a walking frontline tank, taking things from the front lines with the shields up, while just critting things repeatedly with the slam fire shotgun. I'm going to keep these two marked depending on what I decide to do with this guy, but for the most part, I think everything else is going to be approximately this way. Alright, that's the Hell Knight explained. Let's go for the next class. I'm hoping you guys can see why I decided to keep the strategic layer separate from the mission videos, because if I kept them together, you guys would be sitting through like 2-hour videos, which would just be a huge pain in the butt for some people. That way, people who want to see action can see more action, and people who want to really see behind the curtains can get a chance to see behind the curtains. Alright, let's take a look at the Skirmisher next. The Skirmisher is a hit-and-run style unit, and I don't think this description does them justice. They're also like a frontline, breaching enemy lines type unit, as well as a safe backline repositioning unit with their little skulljacks and stuff. Well, not skulljack, ripjack is what it's called. So over here, this guy's got hit and run. If you're flanking an enemy, you get to shoot, your turn will end, and then you get to shoot again with an extra bonus action. Basically, it's a multi-shot perk. They also get access to the Ripjack Slash, 1 action slash ability. You don't get to move with this, so you have to move next to them and slash, or if you're already standing next to an enemy, you get to slash twice, because this doesn't end your turn, and you have 2 actions. Marauder makes it so that shooting your gun doesn't end your turn. So now, if you're flanking a target at the start of your turn, you can shoot with one of your actions, shoot with your second action, and since you're getting a bonus action from flanking, you get to shoot with a third action. So this allows you to shoot 3 times in a row. Very powerful perk. You can do mix and matches. So for example, you can shoot, chop the sectoid next to you twice, or shoot, chop, shoot. You can do all sorts of different variations of combos here. This is a class that can allow you to be very creative. You get a lot of different ways to reposition them, they get lots of action points, and overall I think this is one of the classes where skill expression comes in play quite a bit. I feel like some people don't appreciate the Skirmisher a lot, especially because they were kind of underwhelming in vanilla compared to the Templar, but overall I'm a huge fan of the Skirmisher class. They're one of my favorite classes in the game. The final perk they get over here is Grapple. Grapple is a free action, so the main combo with these guys is you grapple behind a group of enemies and then you start shooting them with a combination of shots and ripjack slashes. Now, before we go further into their kit, we're going to look at their weapons. The Bullpup is basically a weaker assault rifle in every regard, less damage, less crit, but this is usually a weapon given to classes that can shoot multiple times to make up for the lower damage. It does give a little bit more mobility than an assault rifle, so there is that. We also get the Ripjack over here, 4 damage Ripjack. It usually doesn't really crit, so I don't really look at the crit damage as much. And finally down here we've got our utility item slots. I usually go with some ablative HP, followed by some equipment like grenades or flashbangs or medkits, some combination of those things. Now then, let's take a look at their perks, shall we? Similar to the Hell Knight, I'm going to go through one line of perks, look at a couple of variations, then go through the rest. For the most part, I think I will probably end up going mostly middle row on this guy. Some combination of perks like that. And we'll start explaining each of these perks. So the first one over here is Justice. Same as in vanilla, you get a lot of bonus accuracy, and you can try to pull an enemy towards you. If you succeed, you'll chop them once with your Ripjack for 4 damage. This costs 1 action, so if you have 2 of your actions available, you can pull an enemy and chop shoot, or no, you can't chop shoot, but you can shoot shoot or shoot chop. Very powerful perk over here. It allows you to one-shot a lot of the early game mini enemies, and it also allows you to reposition enemies safely. A lot of the times running into fog with like a shotgunner can possibly risk activating more enemies. This allows us to pull the enemies towards us safely. Only works against things like Advent Troopers, of course, so that's the one limitation of this thing. Now over here we have the exact opposite, Wrath. Pulls ourselves towards the enemies. Now this is a little bit riskier than Justice, so I don't use it as often, but this thing does have the bonus that you can use it on non-humanoids, so you can use this on mechs, you can use this on sectoids, and the melee damage from the Wrath will do bonus damage against sectoids. So it's a very powerful tool early on to get rid of certain things that you normally wouldn't be able to get with Justice. Once again, you're using one action with this, so you can grapple in, shoot twice, grapple in, shoot chop. You can do all sorts of different variations of this combo here. Over here we got Bloody Knuckles and Whiplash. I used to always take Whiplash, and this is a really good perk for killing things like drones and mechs. Very powerful for the early game. Doing that bonus damage allows you to one-shot some of these really pesky enemies really early on. It's very, very powerful, and I believe it pierces armor too. This costs one action, so you can do things like grapple, use your Marauder to shoot something, activate hit and run, shoot something else, and then use Whiplash again, or use one of your grapple perks. Lots of variations on how you can combo their perks around on the battlefield, but this is quite nice. However, after testing Bloody Knuckles, I think I'm gonna probably take Bloody Knuckles on this guy. This perk over here does 3 bonus damage. The starting Ripjack does 4 damage. That's like a 75% damage increase, and it's the equivalent of taking your ballistic Ripjacks and upgrading them into a magnetic Ripjack. And if you have the magnetic Ripjack, it's the equivalent of having the fusion Ripjacks. So it's very, very good. Lots of bonus damage, and this will ensure one-shots on a lot of the early game enemies. It's a very big power spike for the Skirmisher. Lots of damage. Now up here we have a couple of choices here. There's Retribution or Implacable. Retribution is basically Bladestorm but with the Ripjack. It's less accuracy, but you get a lot of free extra actions if you position him into the middle of the enemy team. And it allows you to get, so normally with the Ripjack combo you get the Ripjack double shot, right? So that's like 3 hits. With the Retribution you essentially get 4 hits, which is quite powerful. Now, because this counts as an Overwatch action, you'll usually end up having like 70-60% chance to hit depending on the accuracy of this guy. This guy over here unfortunately has quite low accuracy, so the merit to taking this is a little bit lower. If we find ways to boost this accuracy at Staff Sergeant rank, I will consider taking Retribution, but if not, I'll probably take Implacable, which allows him to reposition to safety after taking a risky Wrath. A lot of the times, grapple forces you to stand out in the open, so being able to reposition after putting this guy out in the open and killing something is honestly quite nice. Okay, over here in Tech Sergeant, we got a really tough choice here. So, Lock and Load gives you a free ammo point after getting a kill. Because of a hit and run and Marauder, this guy is going to be shooting a lot of times, and if you don't have the weapon mods to sustain your ammunition, you're going to run out very quickly. This helps alleviate that, and is not bad if you're planning on shooting a lot with your Skirmisher. Over here we also have Dervish. This reduces the cooldown on your Ripjack if you get kills. Now the Ripjack itself has a 2-turn cooldown, so if you're able to score a kill with it, I believe you're allowed to just Ripjack every single turn, as long as you're getting a kill every turn. Very powerful in that regard. I'm a huge fan of Dervish on these guys. I'll probably end up taking that. And finally, Manual Override. Lowers all ability cooldowns on selected ally soldier. This is a support ability. And this used to be absolutely busted. In the past, this just reset all of their cooldowns. So for example, if you had like a psionic trooper with things like mind control or void rift and stuff, you could just have them cast all of their abilities, reset it, and just continue casting their abilities. This got nerfed because of what I did. Ow, I just hit my elbow against the table and it hurt. Let's keep going here, but very powerful support ability. I think I'll probably make this guy Ripjack oriented just because it seems like that's how I feel like building him right now with Bloody Knuckles and both of these perks over here. I think I'm in the mood to try some sort of Ripjack build. Although if I do see a soldier on the team, like an ally that he can partner with, that could really appreciate a cooldown reduction, I will consider taking Manual Override. Now up here we have Lethal. This is 2 bonus points of damage, plus 3 if you crit. Assuming we don't crit, this is plus 2 damage. And for those of you guys who are having trouble visualizing how relevant 2 damage is, the Bullpup currently does 3 to 4 damage, so 2 bonus damage is approximately like a 50% damage output bonus. The Bullpup is generally a lower damage weapon, so bonus damage actually does help it quite a bit. But the main thing that you guys should always consider when evaluating these bonus damage type perks is multi-shot. Since this guy has hit and run, we're actually doing this bonus 2 damage twice. This is actually a 4 bonus damage perk. Technically 6 if you count the crit bonus damage, if you get the crit. So this is a lot of bonus damage on this guy's main combo. It's like anywhere between 4 to 6 bonus damage. Very powerful in that sense. If you're getting the triple shot off with Marauder, it's even more. So overall, if you need damage output, which you will be needing in Beyond Legendary, Lethal is a very, very good choice. Burial Blade's the other choice that I have here. This does also get the bonus from Bloody Knuckles. I kind of do like Burial Blade because Advent Priests in Beyond Legendary are so dang hard to kill. They have so much HP, they have the Brawler perk, they have Hazmat Vest so you can't light them on fire and such, and they have the Sustain ability, and it's just so hard to kill them. This guy can serve a role in killing one of the most annoying enemy types in the game. Use Justice, pull them towards you, shoot them in the face, and then just cut them to death with Burial Blade. Now, unfortunately, this combo is a bit weakened because the Beyond Legendary version of the Advent Priest gets the Brawler perk, which basically makes it so that it halves their damage output. But with enough support, we can ensure that we have a way of killing them through their sustain. And this is helpful if they have, like, a teammate mind controlled. You really don't want to let your enemies mind control your teammates for more than 1 turn. So this actually has a lot of merit to it. And the final perk down here would be Thousands to Go. Once per turn after killing an enemy with your primary weapon, you may take an additional non-movement action. So we are getting lots of kills with this guy. Between the grappling hook and the multi-shots, things will be dying. However, abilities that refund action points aren't as powerful when you combo it with Battle Lord, which is kind of what I'm planning on doing with this guy. And that's unfortunately going to be the reason why I probably won't be taking Burial Blade on this guy. And I'll be explaining that once we get to it, which is right now, in fact. So, Battle Lord. In vanilla, Battle Lord was bugged. So after each enemy in line of sight takes a turn, take an immediate action, no action points will be refunded. So in vanilla, Battle Lord was bugged in that you could only take 2 extra actions when 2 enemies took their moves, and after that you got no bonus actions. They fixed that in Long War of the Chosen, and subsequently Ted Jam and Beyond Legendary. And so we do get the infinite actions. If 10 enemies are taking actions, you get 10 action points on the soldier. It is very, very powerful. Now, before they balanced it, with the no action points will be refunded, you could do some really cheeky things with the soldier and just basically dominate the battlefield. You still can do that now, but no action points being refunded means you don't get hit and run, so you can only take 1 shot or 1 chop per enemy action. You can no longer take 2. And also perks like Thousands to Go, where if you kill something you get an action point back. This no longer works. Burial Blade, if you kill an enemy you get an action point back. That no longer works. Implacable, getting a bonus movement action after killing a target. That also doesn't work. So if you're gonna go with this build, you have to be prepared to have this guy standing in really awkward positions. You have to be prepared to only be able to take like standard shots or 1 single chop against your enemies. Overall, I think it'll still be a very fun perk to take, although in Beyond Legendary it's quite dangerous to let a lot of boss units take actions. So I'm not sure if this is going to be the best choice to pick here, but this is going to be the one that I pick mostly just for the fun aspect of it. This is my favorite perk in the entire game because you can just do so many fun things with it. And we'll see if we can make a build that combos with this looking at the stuff down here. We might have something that works with that, we'll see. Now the other choice over here is the Ripjack Charge. This is the one that they offer you if you're taking the middle row build. Ripjack Charge. You can trigger the charge ability by placing the movement cursor on an enemy, same as with basically the melee attack chop basically. Costs 1 action point, is not turn ending, and has a 3-turn cooldown. A Skirmisher can perform a dash move with a charge attack, and it will still only cost 1 action point. So basically what this means is, instead of grappling in, I can run in and chop and take multiple shots. I don't think this is as powerful as it might sound, because even though you're allowed to run in and do your chop and then shoot twice, you could do the same thing with Justice and Wrath, really. And the positioning is approximately equal. I would say this is kind of not a necessary perk to take if you already have these, but if you don't take these though, you might consider taking Ripjack Charge. Maybe. And then the final perk over here is Rapid Fire. This is actually a very solid one. I would say if Battle Lord isn't the right choice, if it's like the weaker choice overall, or if it just doesn't fit your playstyle, this is a very solid choice to pick. Basically, I believe it gives you 4 shots with this soldier. You get to shoot once with your Marauder, shoot again with Hit and Run, and then with your final shot, you can take a Rapid Fire, which is another 2 shots. So that's 4 shots total, or you can Ripjack next to an enemy, shoot them once, and then Rapid Fire them again. So that's like a Ripjack and 3 shots. And this is very powerful. Lethal comboed with multi-shots, as I've said earlier, is incredibly good. This is essentially making lethal into a 6 bonus damage perk. Very powerful combo, and is going to net you a lot of single target kills. This makes them perfect for deleting priority targets on the map. And I would say this is possibly the better choice over Battle Lord, because in Beyond Legendary, letting enemies take actions against you is kind of iffy. But I'm a huge fan of Battle Lord, and I really love the original playstyle of the Skirmisher. It's kind of like an Attack on Titan feel kind of thing, where they're like grappling, hooking around, and just shooting things and cutting things. It's really cool. Now I'm gonna go look at these top perks over here. So, if you were gonna go for the Rapid Fire build and you didn't care about Battle Lord at all, you could give up your Ripjack and do this. So, Battlefield Awareness, if you score a kill during your turn, the next attack against you during the enemy turn will miss. Upon usage, the ability goes on a 3-turn cooldown. Essentially what this means is this is the untouchable perks that the Ranger gets in vanilla, except it has a 3-turn cooldown. And the reason for that is because you get this so early on. So it's like a nerfed version of untouchable for the early game. This will increase this guy's survivability, and with the way that these guys position, they tend to stand in really awkward spots, so this really isn't a bad perk at all to take if you don't want to take the grappling hook perks. I'm such a nerd for the grappling hooks though that I just will never give these up, so you'll never see me taking these 2 perks up here. But they do sound fine on paper. I've never really played with them, but from my theory crafting, they seem very good. Reflex over here, when fired upon, gain 1 extra action on the next turn, triggers no more than once per turn, attacks against you suffer -15 penalty to critical hit chances. So this ups your survivability and gives you more bonus actions. That combos very well with Marauder, and it combos well with Battlefield Awareness. So now, if you kill something, then an enemy shoots at you, they'll miss, and you get to take 3 actions on your next turn. Combo that with Rapid Fire, you can get a lot of shots off. And I mean a lot of shots. I think you can get like a total of like 5 shots off, and with lethal, that will just absolutely destroy anything that this guy wants to shoot at. You will definitely need to have an auto reloader or a lock and load perk on this guy if you're gonna go with this build, because otherwise you just will not be able to unload that many shots on your bullpup. I think expanded magazine should also work with this build if you want to go for that route. Now, the other final build is actually the Bomber build. This is actually the intended way to play with Battle Lord, because now that you can no longer reset your actions and get like multiple shots off on the enemy turn, it's significantly weaker to try to do traditional Skirmisher with Battle Lord. However, we have this row down here, which I'm going to showcase right now. Total Combat, gain 1 mobility, 5 aim. This is a perk that the Head Jam team has slapped onto every class, or almost every class that wants to have grenades as an option. So try to remember what this perk does. So it provides a salvo-like perk effect applied to both rockets and grenades. Salvo basically makes it so that throwing a grenade does not end your turn. So you're allowed to throw a grenade and shoot, or you're allowed to throw 2 grenades. Or you're allowed to shoot 2 rockets or whatever. Grenades also no longer have a cooldown. So in Long War, grenades have a 1-turn cooldown, so you can't throw grenades back to back. That is changed with Total Combat. You're allowed to throw multiple grenades back to back now. In addition, you can throw grenades 3 tiles further, and their radius is increased by 1. Grants a grenade-only slot. This slot will not drain soldiers' mobility even if it will be displayed as such in the armory. This is such a loaded perk. Back in when I was playing Long War 2, Salvo was a perk by itself for the Grenadier class. Grenades not having a cooldown was an effect applied to the grenade launcher. Being able to throw grenades 3 tiles further was its own perk called Bombard. And increasing the radius of your grenades was another perk called Volatile Mix. So this is essentially 4 perks in one. Grenade only slot. That's actually another perk in itself. There's a perk that gives you a grenade only slot. And yeah, so this is like 5 perks in one. And not only that, it's also giving you mobility and aim. This is such a loaded perk because nobody ever wants to like just slap grenades on a soldier. But they wanted to like give grenades as an option for classes that have like really low accuracy. So if you have like a class that's based on shooting, but they have no accuracy, you have the option to go like a grenade tosser build. And really, this guy over here has actually got the stats for it. He's got abysmal aim and his mobility is decent enough to get within range to throw grenades. Honestly, if I were to build a Battlelord build, the optimal way is to go bottom row. I'm just a huge nerd for grappling hooks, like I said. But yeah, so this guy's able to throw 2 grenades in a turn. Let's keep on reading at what they can do. Needle Arsenal. All of your weapons do not destroy loot when they kill enemies, so this is kind of a bonus to grenades, and deal 1 bonus damage to unarmored enemies. All weapons and attacks are affected, be it fire, grenades, or even rockets. Very interesting. Nice bit of bonus damage as well as loot preservation. Packmaster. Grants 1 charge to every utility item and grenade equipped. So, essentially, with total combat, you have 3 slots over here. What you could do is do triple grenades, and you would also get a bonus grenade slot over here. So you can have 4 grenades total. Comboed with Packmaster, you can have a total of 8 grenades held by this one soldier. Are you guys seeing where this is going? This guy is literally just gonna walk in and just start throwing grenades all over the place. Improvised frag grenade. Improvise a frag grenade using scavenged materials. So this is a new set of themed perks called the improvised grenade perks. This is the most standard one. So basically, you use you have 2 charges on this, and I believe you get more charges as you rank up with the way this works. So at max rank, you can get like 5 extra grenades on a mission or something, but you do need to spend an action point to craft the grenade. That's something to keep in mind. On timed missions, you will not be able to use this as effectively, but on missions that aren't timed, where you get to take all the time in the world, you just craft like 5 extra grenades on this guy, and this guy will just have like 10 grenades in his inventory or some nonsense like that. It can get really funny. Manual Override, just a support perk. We've gone over this already. Thousands to go, bonus action point if you kill something. So basically you just start lobbing grenades. If you kill something, you lob even more grenades. It's very straightforward. Very simple, very straightforward. And finally with Battlelord. Now, before just shooting an enemy with your bullpup for each of your actions, not as exciting, right? Ripjacking something, not as exciting. Now, throwing a grenade with each of your actions. Remember how I said that this guy could get like, what, 10 plus grenades? I think like 12 grenades or something. With Battlelord, you can unload all 12 of those grenades in 1 turn when the moment calls for it. You're ever in a situation that's completely uncontrolled and like you don't have the situation under control, the enemies are swarming you, you just hit the Battlelord on the enemy turn, this guy just starts throwing grenades like a maniac. This is particularly good with the incendiary grenades. If you throw an incendiary grenade on an enemy, they won't be able to do anything because they're on fire, but they can still move, and that triggers your Battlelord. So if you can figure out the precise order in which the enemies are moving, usually like pod leaders move first, followed by the rest of their squad, if you do that, you can just repeatedly burn each enemy before they get an action, and they'll just start running around in circles, screaming while they're on fire. It's hilarious. But yeah, if you wanted to go the grenade build, this is a very solid build, very powerful. I will be showcasing the grappling hook though, because I just think the grappling hook skirmishers are just so underappreciated. So hopefully you guys will be able to appreciate them after I'm done using them too. Now let's look down here at their extra perks and see what we want to teach them. Now, Some classes also get access to the pistol perks down here. This will also cost a lot of AP, but any class that can equip a pistol will be able to take all these pistol perks. So you have fan favorites like Fanfire, Face Off, Lightning Hands, Quick Draw, and you also have some unique ones introduced by the Long War mod. Things like Magnum, shooting pistols have no longer a long range penalty. You can do things like Clutch Shot, Guaranteed Hits, Gunslinger, which basically just burns the area around you into a pistol kill zone kind of thing. Very fun set of stuff. If you are going to take pistol perks, I highly recommend looking for perks that increase the damage of not your primary weapon. So for example, Lethal does not work because this only boosts the damage of the bullpup. But because pistols shoot so often, if you can get like even +1 damage on Fanfire, that's like +3 damage. Lightning Hands is like +2 damage with your standard shot also. Lots of fun combos there. Now we got a couple of perks over here, so let's take a look. Crusader's Rage. 25% damage boost for every 25% HP missing, up to a 50% damage boost. Reduces wound recovery time for the soldier by 6 HP. As funny as it sounds to like purposely get the soldier wounded so that they can get bonus damage, it's probably not that safe to do that. Having them at risk of dying is very not good. Unless you give them an emergency life support, then you could consider doing something crazy like that. I considered that myself a few times in the past, but I don't think I'm crazy enough to try that in Beyond Legendary in its current state. The game's already really hard, and I'm not even sure if we'll win this campaign, but I'm confident enough that we'll get far enough to have a good showing of the content in here. Wound recovery times for the soldier will be reduced by 6. This is the main reason to pick this. If you have a soldier that you really just want in action as often as possible, you would want to take Crusader's Rage. Improvise explosives. Assemble a random explosive from various objects around the field. This is slightly different from Improvised Frag Grenade because this creates a random grenade. Assembles multiple grenades if the Skirmisher also has a light ordnance. 2-turn cooldown. Okay. So basically this just lets you make random explosives, and this one does not seem to have charges, so you'll never run out of explosives for your Battle Lord needs. Honestly, this is a really good soldier for the Battle Lord build. Maybe I have to actually go for the grenade build. I don't want to, but he's got good perks for it. He's also got boosted cores too. Hidden Reserve, set cooldowns back to 0, that combos with Battle Lord. You know, I've never deviated from Ripjack Skirmisher, but I think this might be the one time that I actually do this. I'm gonna deviate from Ripjack Skirmisher. We'll see how this goes, okay guys? We'll try something new together. This guy gets access to tandem heat warheads, he gets access to boosted cores. I just feel like I have to do it. I think I just have to do it. He just gets all the grenade perks. I'd be insane not to pick this up. Boosted cores, bonus damage on our grenades, armor piercing on our grenades. Like, it's just too good not to take, I think. Alright, Dredaya, we're gonna try something new with you. Don't let me down, and try not to die halfway through the campaign. I'll be really sad if you do. Alright, next up is our Rook. This video, I think, is already longer than the mission before this. But this is technically the kind of video that's like a dream come true for theory crafting lovers like me. I'm a huge fan of talking about perks and all the builds that you can do for your soldiers. So I'm hoping there's other people out there like me that will really truly enjoy this type of content here. Alright, Mao Chow over here. Let's take a look at what you can do. Rooks in XCOM, renowned for their unyielding resilience, not only serve as immovable walls, but also possess the remarkable ability to unleash precise Overwatch shots, making them formidable guardians, capable of absorbing relentless attacks and deterring adversaries. Now, if you look at the soldier over here, they get access to both an assault rifle. I don't think they get access to really anything else. They get variations of the assault rifle, like the Marauder auto rifle and the Hunter rifle. And they also get the ballistic guardian shield. So unlike the Templar shield that the Hell Knight has, the Hell Knight's shield generates HP. This one does not generate HP. I believe this one generates dodge stat, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe this gives armor. I don't remember which one this gives. I think this one's dodge stat. Shield Wall provides high cover to adjacent units and receive -30 defense but +20 dodge. So defense is your enemy's ability to hit you. That's like cover. So we're basically losing 30 defense, which is basically a half cover's worth of defense. The enemies are more likely to shoot at this person, but this person also gets access to 20 extra dodge when they activate that ability, which means most shots will graze this guy. So this guy's kind of like a graze tank.
I probably wouldn't be alive today.
So that's
if it
something to
weren't
keep
for
in
your
mind.
father.
And also, before I forget,
Something of a miracle worker.
3
Getting
utility
the Avengers
slots.
power
That's the
back
standard.
online was a miracle.
Probably just do
I'm
like
not entirely
grenades,
sure how to
flashbangs, med
decipher their
kits.
system,
They also get a pistol
But we'd
slot.
still be half buried in the sand if he hadn't. He gave everything he had to get the
Now
ship
then.
running. But he
Nullifying
didn't live long
shot?
enough to see her fly.
We
Cut
owe
this
you
part
both
out.
a debt of gratitude.
You can honor his memory by using this ship to destroy the aliens wherever we find them.
You'll get no argument here.
Okay, so back to their abilities. The first one they get is Nullifying Shot, an empowered shot that weakens enemy units, reducing their aim, crit, defense, dodge, and mobility for 1 turn. Deals bonus damage against psionic units, aim, crit, defense, dodge reduced by 10, mobility reduced by 5. This absolutely cripples the early game enemies because they already have low stats to begin with. So if you have like 65 aim and you like lose 10 aim, you basically will just never hit something in full cover with a full hit. You can still graze them, but it's very unlikely that you get any good hits off. The main thing I like about this is that it does bonus damage against psionic units. The early game Advent Priests are such a pain to deal with that this is just really nice to have overall. Next up, they get Protect and Serve, gain a non-movement action point after using One for All or Shield Wall, very similar to the Hell Knights perk, which allows them to set up their shield and still take actions. This guy will be able to do just that. It's kind of hard to explain exactly what this looks like in the field, but once you see it in action, you'll understand that this is a really nice perk for any unit that has shields. Crowded Bulwark. When you shield wall, release smoke to protect allies and provide the benefits of a smoke grenade. Will trigger most bonuses that smoke grenades give and perks that buff smoke grenades. So essentially you have a smoke grenade in the 1 tiles around this soldier. This is a type of soldier where you can defend allies that are all just standing right next to you. And you can combo that with a perk like Aegis. One for All on Shield Wall now reduce incoming damage by 33% and redirects any attacks against nearby allies towards you. So any allies that are getting shot, if they're standing next to this guy, even if they're flanked, all those shots will be redirected into the Rook. It's a very powerful defense perk. And if you can make your shield units really, really tanky, you can really protect your team very well with this type of perk. And finally down here, we've got the Galvanized Armor. Gain a +1 armor. The last 1 armor cannot be shredded. Enemy shred is reduced by 1 against this unit. Personally, I think this is like almost a must on every tank unit in Beyond Legendary because so many things get shred now. But yeah, this is a very tanky unit, capable of taking hits. They also have an Overwatch build over here in the middle, and they have support for things like smoke grenades. I'm going to probably do some combination of tanking and smoke grenading on this guy. So let's start by looking through their... I think what I'll do is I'll mark off my preferred build, and then I'll go through all of this together. So my preferred build would be something like this, probably. Okay, there's multiple ways you can build this guy, but I think you can either do Overwatch or you can go full dedicated tank. I'm probably leaning towards full dedicated tank on this soldier, and let's go through this. So first things first, Combat Simulants. A fast-acting simulant in your smoke grenades grants +10 aim and critical chance to units in the smoke cloud. Very simple thing, all your units next to you will receive a buff to their accuracy, and you will kind of just move up through a map in formation with this guy with a bunch of shooting class units, and then they'll just like shoot all the stuff and he's going to hold up the shield and protect all his teammates. A very fun type of playstyle, you know, the classic like tank and carry type thing. And this just leans into it quite nicely. Next perk over here is going to be Sturdy Walls. Grants 2 HP, 1 armor, 15 dodge, and causes you to gain 20 defense while on Overwatch. Very straightforward, as this is just raw stats. 2 HP is solid in the early game, +1 armor is good throughout the entire game. 15 dodge kind of leans into their identity as a dodge tank, dodge and armor tank, and 20 defense will help them just get a little bit more survivability while they're guarding their friends. Now then, down here, this is where things get really interesting. Sacred Incense. Smoke grenades cleanse and provide temporary protection from mental effects. Basically, as long as you're standing next to this guy and you're receiving the smoke cloud from his shrouded bulwark, you are immune to all mind controls, sectoid abilities. The Warlock's attempts to mind control you will also get completely negated. Disorient is negated, so if a stun lancer slaps you, you won't get disoriented or stunned. Drones can't stun you. You can't be knocked unconscious by a stun lancer. There's so many things that this prevents. Avatars in the late game can't mind control you. This is just so powerful. And the fact that you get it at Sergeant is incredibly nice, because this is at the rank where sectoids are kind of most threatening at this point in the game. So this comes at a good time, as a very good perk, combos well with your smoke grenade and your main abilities. Next over here we got Aegis. This is kind of their bread and butter if you're going to do the formation type playstyle. 1/4 all on shield wall now reduce incoming damage by 33%, so it makes them tankier and redirects any enemy attacks towards you. Your teammates will just not need any form of defense or survivability at all. You can stand this guy next to your snipers, your squishies, and they will be completely safe. This even works against grenades and such, so very interesting perk, but very powerful too. Provided this guy can survive. There's a couple enemy types in this game that can pierce these guys' defense, so you do have to be a bit careful about that. Alright, next perk over here is Crusader's Rage. Gain 25% damage boost. You guys know all about this one. The main reason we're taking this is for the wound recovery times being reduced. Being a dodge tank means this guy will be taking damage. He doesn't regenerate shielding like the Hell Knight does, so he'll slowly be losing HP, and if that happens, I want this guy to be able to not be in the medbay for like 3 weeks or so. Other options include Avenger if you just want more combat capability, or if you want more movement power, double time is not a bad choice also. Alright, next perk over here is going to be Combat Drugs. A fast-acting simulant in your smoke grenades grants all units in the area 20 aim and 20 will for 2 turns. This combos with combat simulants, so that 10 aim and that 20 aim does stack, and you can get a total of 30 aim, which is enough to bypass half cover completely. And full cover will now only grant like 15 defense for the enemy units, so this is the perfect perk to take if you're planning on running a shooting team. And basically, you just run a bunch of shooters next to this guy and he kills them all. Final perk over here is going to be Fortifying Incense. Smoke grenades provide temporary protection from fire, poison, acid, and explosive damage. This is absolutely insane. So now, like, before, you could still be hit by grenades, but all the damage would go on this guy, and they would still shred him and such. Now, you won't even get shredded by grenades and micro missiles from mechs. You can just be immune to all of that. Enemy purifiers trying to use flamethrowers against you, you're safe. You can walk through fires, you can walk through acid. Andromedons in the late game at Master Sergeant won't be able to do anything to you. Chrysalids won't hurt you at all anymore. An excellent perk to take at Master Sergeant, and this just kind of rounds out this guy's entire identity as kind of a frontline smoke tank. Very interesting build. Now, looking over here, this guy does not get pistol perks. Let's look down in this slot over here. He gets access to Butcher. If I were going to try and do a shooting build, I might consider taking Butcher, but in this case, I don't think I will. He's actually got some decent shooting perks. If we wanted to do the Overwatch build, it's not the worst idea. Got things like Butcher, Shooting Sharp. These do take up a lot of combat intelligence, though. I don't have that many points to spare. I think what we'll do is we'll probably just make this guy into one of those not super crazy units where we take a bunch of super powerful perks, but we just take a bunch of little perks. For example, Paramedic. Unlocks an ability to perform a dash move to use a medkit on an ally. Gain a free medkit, and equipped medkits have 2 extra charges. So basically, he now doubles as a medic for the squad. Quite nice. Only costs 10 points. We have 42 points to pick on this guy. We can also take things like Riot Control. You have 1 free smoke grenade, which is perfect because this guy has a bunch of smoke grenade perks. Now, if there's an ally that's not next to him, he can still support them with a smoke grenade from long distance. Also has access to a flashbang if we want to just control enemies in a different way. We could take Center Mass with bonus damage. A couple of ways we can build this guy. I think we'll just do it like this. This is like, what, 35 points? I think 35 points is fine on this guy to just spare like this. And we won't have to eat too much into our team's combat intelligence points. So that should be fine. And what I'll do now is I'll go over the rest of their perks so you guys can have an idea of what their alternatives look like. So down here in the shielding perks, Aegis Desire. Activating Shield Wall grants a minor barrier to allies in the vicinity. I don't exactly know what a minor barrier exactly is. I'm assuming it's something like 2 or 3 shield or something like that. However, if we're taking Aegis, we don't really need shielding for your teammates. You're already taking the hits for them, so you kind of want to have more tankiness for the Rook themselves, which is why I opt to take Sturdy Walls. Then over here, there's also the Overwatch set of perks. So you have Cool Under Pressure. Your Overwatch will be more accurate and can now crit. So your Overwatch is basically turned into standard shots with this. You can also take things like Covering Fire. So now if the enemies don't move but just sit still and shoot, you can still shoot back at them with your Overwatch. And this also grants an aim malice on the enemies, which basically means it lowers their accuracy when they try to shoot back at you. Rapid Reaction will give them a triple shot Overwatch. So if you're doing an Overwatch build, you could take Cool Under Pressure and Rapid Reaction. If you do go this route, this is perfectly fine to take, especially if you get like other Overwatch supporting perks. But you do have to give up on Fortifying Incense and Combat Simulants. I'm gonna lean our Rook into more of like a purely support-oriented guy. But it's not the worst idea to just take Rapid Reaction over your Fortifying Incense if that's how you want to build them. Not bad at all. Embrasure. Once per turn, Shield Wall grants an Overwatch action. I don't think this is as necessary because we already have Protect and Serve, so we can activate our shield and go on Overwatch all in one turn. This is kind of not a necessary thing for this class to take. Avenger over here. Once per turn, take a reaction shot with your assault rifle at a visible enemy that has taken an offensive action. If you're okay with giving up Crusader's Rage, you can take this. I would really only take this though if I do take Cool Under Pressure. That way it kind of powers up your Overwatch shots. Over here we also have Double Time. Extra movement is nice. This guy's already quite fast, so if you want to take this, you can. However, I do find that your teammates will have trouble keeping up with you if you take Double Time, so I usually don't take this on this unit. I prefer to take Crusader's Rage. Lethal. If you're taking your Overwatch perks, then this is kind of a no-brainer. You can opt to give this up and take Combat Drugs for the extra accuracy. The Combat Drugs does affect the guy himself. And then after that, let's go look at the top row perks. Eat This. You gain plus 20 aim and plus 20 crit on attacks against adjacent targets. Bonus decreases with range to a maximum of 6 tiles. This is mostly meant for close quarters, but this unit tends to fight things at mid-range, not exactly necessarily at close range, so this isn't as necessary. This isn't actually quite good on this class compared to Cool Under Pressure and Combat Simulants, in my opinion. Because with Combat Simulants, you get to just immediately pop this and get plus 10 aim and crit. Even though that's half of this, I don't have to be at close range to make use of it. Grants 2 mobility and the perks Parkour and Moving Targets. If you want this guy to be even faster, this is an option, but I also find that if I'm going to run the tank build, my teammates won't be able to keep up. Parkour is a perk that allows you to climb up walls without ladders, so that's kind of neat, but once again, if your teammates can't follow you to stay underneath your shield, then that's kind of a problem. This is more of like a turning this guy into a solo unit kind of thing. Over here we've got the shield charge. The Rook rushes the target, damaging and knocking them back. Immediately activates shield wall afterwards. This one's kind of interesting, and I believe you do get an action point with Protect and Serve. So this one's kind of interesting. You get to rush up to your target, hit them, knock them out of cover, and immediately get a shield, and you get to shoot them afterwards. This is kind of like a really good version of Run and Gun, actually, where you get to dash up to an enemy, get bonus damage against them, shoot them still, and knock them out of cover so your teammates can finish them off. If you're okay with giving up on Sacred Incense, this is actually a very solid perk to take. I choose not to take this though, because I find that Sacred Incense is just so good for the late game. There's some late game enemies that have really, really powerful psionic abilities, like the Navigator Gatekeeper or something is what it's called. It has the ability to like just mind control your units like every single round. It's very dangerous if you don't have access to Sacred Incense. Highly recommend that you just have this. Dervish is interesting as a perk if you want to have the ability to lower cooldowns. I think for the most part this class doesn't really run cooldowns besides nullifying shot maybe. Does this even have a cooldown? I don't think so. I think this class doesn't even have any cooldown based perks. So this probably isn't that relevant for this class. I already explained that one. Energy Drain. When you use Nullifying Shot or Witch Slayer, gain a movement only action. So this is going to be leaning into the turning this guy into like a one-man fighter rather than like a team player kind of thing. You can run up, flank a Advent Priest, take a shot at them with your Nullifying Shot, and then run back to safety. Not nearly as good as just taking advantage of your combat drugs and getting bonus aim so you can shoot them safely from a better position, in my opinion. This also allows you to support your teammates. There's just so much more value in this one perk, right? And finally, Witch Slayer. An empowered shot that weakens enemies, reducing their aim, crit, defense, dodge, and mobility for 1 turn. So it's basically a powered up version of your Nullifying Shot. Deals bonus damage against psionic units. Stats are reduced by 10, mobility reduced by 5, non-turn ending, and disorients. That's the unique thing about this. So 1 is that this doesn't end your turn, and 2, this disorients, so it gives you a way to kind of cancel things like mind control, disorients, or panics from a sectoid, while doing a ton of damage to them. You know, I want to give this perk a little bit of credit because Advent Priests are just such a tanky and annoying enemy type out there, and I believe this also works against the Warlock when we finally start fighting the Chosen. So honestly, not a bad perk, if it weren't for the fact that Fortifying Incense is just so dang good. I just think it's hard to pass this up. So for the most part, this is going to be our build right here, but there are alternatives over here. I think the strongest alternative is really the Overwatch build. You can consider the anti-psionic perks if you really want to take care of them, but even then, most of these perks up here aren't that relevant for the build. Maybe Shield Charge, maybe Witch Slayer are the ones that I would take from the top row. But most of the time, I'll probably be taking the Smoke Grenade stuff just because it's so unique. It's something that not a lot of classes get access to, and having a form of immunity for your allies is just so good. Next up is our Arsonist, and don't worry guys, most of our strategic layer videos won't be this long. It's just that at the beginning, when you have all of these brand new soldiers, you gotta go through everything, right? I wanna go through everything. This isn't over-explained. And we'll also timestamp each thing in the video so that you guys can skip through and look at the things that you want to look at. So for example, if you care more about the map stuff, I'll have that in the video timestamp thingy. Alright, so the Arsonist class. This is a class that I have a big soft spot for. I'm a huge fan of this class. Now, they wield a weapon called the Chem Thrower. The first rank one is called a Flame Torch. So it does 2 to 3 damage. Bonus critical damage of 1, so this thing can crit. It's not like the flamethrowers that you're used to in vanilla, where you just click on an area and it just sets everything in there on fire. It's very different from that. It has ammunition, a clip size, and it has a range and a radius, which I feel like this 8 and 6 don't really do it justice. You'll see it in action during combat, and then you'll have an idea of how big the AoE on this thing is. Enemies can take cover against this weapon. It is a very balanced form of the flamethrower. Long War 2 had like the technical gauntlet, vanilla had like the flamethrower modules and stuff like that. This one is a very balanced version of those. It's not unfair because flames stun the enemies essentially. They don't let the enemies take actions. So being able to guarantee AoE hit everything with that would just be too busted. This is a very balanced version of that, and I'm a huge fan of the way this is designed. So enemies facing you in cover are going to have cover factored in. So for example, our 61 aim against a half cover guy means we will have a 31% chance to hit them through that cover and such. Very interesting. It still rewards the classic gameplay loop of getting behind the enemies and flanking them and such, but it's a very powerful reward. Instead of damage, you get, well, you still get damage with this, and the burns do rack up over time, but mostly you will have the control where the enemies can't retaliate. Very powerful ability there. The other item down here is the Blast Canister. This is a thing that you don't really use too often, but whenever you're up against mechanical enemies, your flamethrower will not be able to hurt them. So the Blast Canister is your alternative It uses charges, but it does explosive damage. It can destroy corpses. I believe it shreds
Aside from
armor,
us getting this
and
ship
it's
up
your
and running,
only source of
which was
damage
mostly
against
Dr. Shen's
mechanical
work,
enemies.
I haven't felt particularly useful in a long time. I'm more than happy to leave the hard decisions to the commander.
Now then, over here we got the Chemthrower suppression. So pins down the target with continuous fire from the Arsonist Chemthrower, granting reaction fire against it if it moves, and imposing a -25 penalty to the target's aim, causes a burning status effect the moment this ability is used, even before the actual reaction would happen. So basically, the simple way of explaining this through the wall of text is we set a cone and we start suppressing everything within that cone, kind of like suppression with the gunner. So we don't actually shoot at them, we're just flaming that area. If the enemy doesn't move, they suffer 25 aim penalties, and they cannot take any special actions. The description here is a little bit misleading for Beyond Legendary. In a regular TED Jam, this thing would also light them on fire, and that makes this like the safest way to light things on fire through cover. In Beyond Legendary, that's been nerfed so that they do get to not be on fire if they choose to run the suppression and your attack doesn't hit them. So while you're suppressing them with the fire, they can choose to run, and if they choose to run, your character will try to burn them with the Chemthrower, and that will undergo an accuracy check, an Overwatch accuracy check. If you hit them with that, then they get lit on fire, but if you don't hit them with that, then they just get away scot-free. Roving Chemist gain a momentum action point after activating a canister special ability, so if you use the not flamethrower, but the explosive thingy, you get an extra movement. This isn't something that you'll see too often because you don't use this as much, but if you run across like a drone and no one else can kill it, then you'll have to activate your chem thingy to destroy it. Now, when it comes to builds, this is my preferred build. I'm just going to mark these all out right now, and then I'm going to go talk about the rest of this. Okay. So the first perk over here is the Viscous Accelerant. I think this is pretty much a must-take on the Arsonist class. This is kind of a thing that only they can do. No other classes can really do this, even other Chemthrower classes. Chemthrower attacks apply a stacking debuff that increases damage from all damage over time effects. This is like the crux of all DOT type builds. DOT means damage over time, for those of you guys unfamiliar with gaming terminology. So DOT builds means like ticks: poison, acid, fire, bleed. Those are the 4 main ones that you guys will be encountering throughout this run. And basically, this will apply a debuff on the enemies every time you hit them with your Chemthrower. This also applies when you activate Chemthrower Suppression. You don't have to hit them with the Chemthrower Suppression to apply this. They will now take 1 extra point of damage from all burn, poison, acid, and bleed. Now, this is a stacking debuff. This can actually apply multiple times. So if you have 2 Arsonists and you repeatedly hit a guy with a flamethrower, you're gonna start getting burn ticks that hit for like 7 damage or some nutty number like that. And if you have other units throwing poison, acid, and bleed on them, each of those ticks is going to be doing absurd amounts of damage. You can end up having like a turn where like something like the Chosen is taking 20 damage because all the burns and stuff are doing like 5 damage each. It's very crazy, very fun. And we're going to be making a squad specifically meant for dealing damage over time effects. So keep an eye out for that. I think that'll be a very fan favorite squad for the people watching. Next perk over here is Accurate Reaction. We want to get some bonus accuracy for our Chemthrower Suppression, so if enemies try to run, we can get them with the burns. Down here we've got Corroding Compounds. Chemthrower attacks pierce and shred a small amount of armor. This allows us to use our Chemthrower against things that might be immune to the flamethrower. I believe they still take the shred, so it makes our flamethrower a little bit more useful. And even if the enemies are already weak to the burn, you might still need extra damage and shred to kill them off. So this is just a nice little bonus. You could take Bring 'em On if you want to just get raw damage, and you can also take Fulmination if you want to have a bit more utility for detonation of explosives. The description of this is a bit misleading. I've used this before on a mech, and if the mech has 2 missiles, then it only blows up 1 of the missiles. You can still use the other one, unfortunately. So this isn't as nice as it might seem. I used to always take this, but ever since then, I've just been like, alright, it doesn't actually do what I want it to do exactly. Now, down over here, we got Burning Rush. Activate to gain a bonus movement action point. Basic chem thrower attacks will not use up all action points this turn. So what that means is you can move in, chem thrower, then run back out to safety. That's all this means. This also means you can double move in and chem thrower if necessary. This is essentially run and gun for the chem thrower. Next up over here, we're going to be taking Salt in the Wound. All your attacks and effects deal 1 additional point of damage to targets suffering from poison, burning, acid, or bleeding. And this infects the effects themselves. So for example, the burn itself is also dealing +1 damage. Very powerful, very nice. Stacks well with the Viscous Accelerant and just makes your burns hurt for that much more. After that, we'll be taking Hot Shot. Your ability to handle a chem thrower is nothing short of unnatural. Gain the Quick Burn and Fine Control ability. So this is 2 perks in 1. Quick Burn, activated as a free action on a 5-turn cooldown. So you just activate this perk and your next chem thrower attack is a free action. Very simple and straightforward. Allows you to burn 2 separate targets, or allows you to... yeah, basically it's just a 2 separate target burn, or you can try to get one guy that's behind good cover and try to get him twice with that. Fine Control will ensure your chem thrower's offensive actions never affect friendlies, and will also ensure the Medi-Spray and Fumigate abilities never affect enemies. Now what this means is, this class can actually use Overwatch with the chem thrower, and what'll happen is if an enemy runs in front of that cone, or within a range of the soldier, they will shoot a cone towards that enemy. However, if your allies are in the way, they will just light your allies on fire and kill them. It's funny and terrible all at the same time. Fine Control makes it so that they no longer kill your allies. I recommend taking this. It's just a good thing to have. The other perks are still good though. This row is generally some good perks here. Now then, for the final perk over here, we're going to be taking Heavy Hitter. All your attacks deal +2 damage. That sounds kind of iffy until you also see the secondary effect. Increases damage from burning, poison, or acid caused by your attacks. Now this is really good. This is going to allow you to just get +2 damage on all of your burns. Salt in the Wound plus Heavy Hitter. And this will also make it so that you can... yeah, it's basically just damage bonus on your burn ticks. Perfect for the DOT build. If you're okay with losing out on a bit of damage on your burn ticks, you could also opt to take Chemical Storm, which is a very fun perk also. This is based on the Firestorm perk that the technical class has in Long War 2. Burns in a big circle around them. I do like this perk quite a bit. It's really neat. I believe this one also checks for accuracy too. And then the final choice you have over here is Lightfoot. Lightfoot's not a bad one. Extra mobility never hurts people with flamethrowers. If you've been playing with these guys a lot, you'll always have those moments where you're like, oh man, I wish I could just move 1 tile closer. This gets you there. It also reduces your detectability, which is great for ambushes. But at the start of a mission, enemies are most clumped up when they haven't actually scampered and activated. So if you use that opportunity to sneak up close to an enemy and use your flamethrower, you can do some fun things with that. But overall, I like the bonus damage ticks on my burns. I just really like my flamethrower guys to be purely based on just having the burn ticks do a ton of damage. So this is going to be the build that we go for. We'll go through some of the other stuff. Expanded Canister. If you do like to use canisters a lot, this would be the perk to take. Gives you more uses of your secondary weapon, which is that thing right there. I would say if you aren't going to go for the build that I'm going here, the tank build is probably the best way to go. Gives them survivability. They are in the front lines very often, so it wouldn't hurt to make them a bit more bulky. Tank over here gives them bonus armor points based on the armor that they're wearing. Center mass is just for raw damage output, but most of the damage from the chem thrower doesn't come from the gun itself, but from the burn afterwards. Nightmare Fuel is kind of interesting. Chem thrower attacks have a chance to cause panic. Most of the time, since enemies are already getting burned, it doesn't really help that much, but there's some enemies where they're immune to fire, so being able to panic them would be nice, but I wouldn't exactly rely on this. I think it's like only a 1 in 3 chance that it works. 1 in 4 chance, so it's not exactly the most reliable thing to go with. I mean, every once in a while you panic an enemy Purifier and it's like, oh great, but it's not something you can rely on. I would personally prefer to take Accurate Reaction and just make our chem thrower suppression a little bit more reliable there. You get Bring 'em On if you want raw damage on your chem thrower, and Fulmination, I've explained this one. Roaring Flames over here, Chemthrower Reaction Fire has a 20% increased chance to crit. I don't really think of the Chemthrower base damage as a main source of damage. You could. They're really trying to push it, but really it's not something I think of too much when I see Chemthrower. Pressurized Blast. Expel a high pressure blast from the Chemthrower that damages and knocks back everything in a cone. This one's not bad. If you can't burn a target, knocking them out of cover is actually a nice solution for that. Gives your teammates a bit of support there too. Makes them a slightly bigger team player rather than just focus purely on their own burns. Nimble Hands. As a free action, reload your weapon. Chemthrower Suppression takes up 2 ammo points, and this gun by itself naturally comes with 3 ammo. This isn't actually a bad option if you find that you're using Chemthrower Suppression a lot and you're running out of ammo very quickly. And if you don't mind the damage output loss, this is not bad. Oppressive Heat. Pressure Blast, Chemthrower Suppression, and Overwatch Disorient Foes. Personally, if you're not actually going for like a pure damage output type of thing, this is actually probably the better option. Being able to disorient your enemies is honestly very powerful, and being able to disorient enemies in an AoE is really, really good. If you're not trying to min-max the damage of your Chemthrower, I highly recommend taking this. Alright, over here we have Close Combat Specialist. Fire a free reaction shot with your Flame Torch at any visible enemy within 4 tiles. So remember Bladestorm that the Ranger gets in vanilla? Close Combat Specialist is basically a shooting version of that, where instead of just being right next to you, any tiles within 4 tiles you'll attack against them. Now what's special about the Chemthrower being able to use Close Combat Specialist is that it hits in a cone, so it's not just hitting the one thing that's running next to you. If you're in the middle of the enemy team, you're hitting everything that's within that cone, which can get kind of wild if you set it up correctly. You have a group of enemies standing like right in front of you and you just like run right next to them, you're gonna like just repeatedly shoot them with your Chemthrower. Now this guy's accuracy is a bit low, so I can't exactly rely on that unfortunately, but it is an option. And at Gunnery Sergeant, your soldiers should have gained a decent amount of accuracy from promotions. Yeah, the final option over here is Resilience. Can't be critically hit, that's just a really good perk. If I wasn't taking this perk on this build, I would probably take Resilience. Not being crit means no surprise one-shot kills. Very, very powerful ability. Alright, and with that we've gone through most of the perks that these guys can learn. I've already explained both of these earlier. Now, these guys can learn pistol perks, and they struggle against mechanical enemies if they don't have their canister packs. So if you want to have them carry blue screen rounds and like fan fire to just kill mechs, that is an option, and it is a very powerful option. Particularly when you finally decide to make a team of dot users. When you have a team of these guys, they're all going to be struggling to deal damage against mechs because things like Pyromaniacs, Geneva class, they just don't really have weapons that hurt mechanical enemies. Having your characters just carry around like fanfire, blue screen rounds, that's a really good solution for dealing with mechs. So highly recommend that if you are planning on doing a Chemthrower type build. The other perks that this guy has down here are quite interesting also. I'll just go through each of these so you guys can see what each of these does. For the most part, I think what I'm going to be doing is I'll probably take Evasive and that's it. The Chemthrower itself isn't really great at getting kills. Like, you got Thousands to Go and Adrenaline, which are based on killing enemies with your Chemthrower. I feel like you won't be able to hit that as easily though. So probably better just make them survive better and just have them take really risky positions to get burns off on enemies in my opinion. I'll probably end up taking Evasive, and since we have high combat intelligence, I will try to shove in things like Fanfire, maybe Lightning Hands, give this guy the ability to support teammates with a blue screen round, and just kill the mechanical enemies that show up on missions. Oh boy, alright. We have a second Arsonist. I won't go through this guy's perks as much, but we'll just quickly mark off what this guy is going to go for. Very similar to what that other soldier is doing. I think I'm just going to have my soldiers be kind of uniform here. This guy's a little bit different in that his combat intelligence is very low, unfortunately. This guy will not be able to learn all the pistol perks, but that's fine. As long as that other person in front has pistol perks, I think we won't need more than that. I'll probably give this guy Dedication, because to use your Chemthrower, you need to run next to the enemies. This gives bonus movement, And, oh man, sorry if I'm slurring my speech right now. This video has been going on for quite a while, and I'm getting a bit tired here. Alright, but you get bonus movement, and you have the ability to avoid reaction fire, which is very helpful. There's a lot of reaction fire in Beyond Legendary, and that's some of the most dangerous sources of damage that you can take. So, with dedication, you can get past all that quite nicely. And then I'll probably also end up taking either parkour or low profile. I'm thinking I'll take low profile for survivability. Having our half cover count as full means this guy will get shot at a little bit less. Another option that we can take is steadfast or evasive, although that does eat into our points a little bit because I think with very low you only have like, what, 25-ish combat intelligence points? Not a whole lot to spare. So I don't want to eat too much into our combat intelligence points for the team if the soldier isn't going to be turned into a super soldier. But I think Steadfast is a not bad choice either, because this allows us to not get mind controlled by a sectoid and disoriented and all that stuff. These guys are kind of key players and they're very critical for controlling certain boss enemies, so it's important not to let them get stopped by enemies. Although this isn't as helpful once you start getting up to mind shields. Once you can build mind shields, you can just slap those on, and you don't really need this perk as much. I think I'll aim for low profile, and it's just a little bit cheaper in terms of points. So that's that. Okay then, we're almost through all of this, guys. Gene Kelly is next. Okay, this is a very unique soldier. You only get one Crasher class unit in the entire game, so take very good care of Jane Kelly. Ooh, that's my phone. Sorry about that, guys. Then sorry about that. So, this is Jane Kelly. She is the Crasher class. It is a class that uses both a sword and a shotgun. I believe it can hold other types of guns as well. So, the one that I think is most valuable is going to be the hunting shotgun, but you can also use the SMG if you want more mobility on her and you don't care about her shooting. You can also grab an assault rifle if you want more range. Hunter rifle if you want to have a slightly more supportive role. But for the most part, that is going to be what this class is all about. Close quarters and all that stuff. It's a callback to the Ranger class from Vanilla, which no longer exists in all these mod packs, using the sword and the shotgun. And you'll also see that they have some interesting abilities over here. The first one over here is Maim. Fire a shot with your primary weapon that immobilizes the target until the end of their next turn, has no damage penalty, uses 2 ammo, 3 turn cooldown. So essentially this is just you shoot at something and you do regular damage, but you also cause their movement to become 0 for the next round, so they can't move. They can still shoot though, so it's not like a full stun. It's more of an immobilize. This is good in the early game versus drones. Drones will have to get point blank to you in order to activate their special stun ability. And then this can also be very good against things like stun lancers and such. Later on in the game, you'll start seeing berserkers, you're going to start seeing chrysalids, and there's all sorts of different types of enemies out there that do want to melee attack you. So Maim is quite powerful to have on a soldier like this. It's also usable on the Chosen, although the Chosen have an ability to negate it after one special reaction thingy. But that will be something that I showcase for you guys when they finally show up. Alright, but powerful ability, nice to have. Not something that I use all the time because I tend to use her sword a little bit more because I tend to do her sword build more often, but the shotgun is still relevant. Flash is her next ability. This is a Long War II ability that was originally given to the Shinobi class. Attack any enemy within movement range with your sword. It deals +1 damage for every 4 tiles between your starting position and the target. So basically, if you run as far as you can before chopping someone, you'll do extra damage. This perk is quite nice. You wouldn't realize it, but from just looking at it, but +1 damage every 4 tiles is actually quite significant. You're oftentimes getting around 2 damage bonus out of it, and versus sectoids, you can very easily score one-shots on them with just this perk. A very powerful perk, and it was one of the most powerful things actually in the original Long War II, because the damage output was just so high and enemies don't have as much HP and stuff. But in Beyond Legendary, a lot of enemies have more HP, have more armor, so they can tend to survive even if you do flash them from a decent distance away. So yeah, it's still good damage, but it's not as OP as it was in the past. Lightning Slash. Attack any enemy within blue movement range with your sword. This attack does not end the turn. This is great for just getting a little bit of bonus damage before you use your second slash. You can use this to You can't really create more distance with this, but you can just fit in a little bit more damage. Excellent when there's like a sectoid within close range and you just want to get damage off on him before you attack something else. Yeah, not much more to say besides just extra sword damage. Now, when it comes to Jane Kelly, I think the first thing we should talk about is actually this perk down here. So this perk is a reference to Chimera Squad. You can tell from the name over here. The Crasher can now equip cannons, sniper rifles, vector rifles, bullpups, and ripjacks, and gains additional abilities depending on the weapons equipped. So, why don't we go here and take a look. Now, the SMG is a low damage, high mobility weapon, and this allows you to, once per mission, call in an airstrike that does a lot of damage in a large area. Very interesting one. The rifle has cyclic fire, fire 3 shots at a target in a single attack. High damage. If you have a good accuracy Jane Kelly, this is actually not a bad option. Cyclic fire is, in general, just a really strong perk overall. Boltcaster. Pinpoint. Special shot that has bonus aim, critical chance, and critical damage for each action consumed. This is a special perk that was given to certain Viper classes in this mod pack, and now it is on the Boltcaster. Very interesting. I haven't really tried this one out, so I can't really say too much about its effectiveness. Shotgun. Assault shot. Fire a shot against a target within 6 tile radius, free action but can't crit, has a 2-turn cooldown. This is basically just extra bonus damage for free on as long as she's within close range. Combos very nicely with Lightning Slash. You can like Lightning Slash in, get your free assault shot, and then take an extra slash or shot with your shotgun. If you're not sure what to do with the soldier, shotgun is really not a bad one. Cannon. Saturation fire. Fire a cone-shaped barrage of bullets at every enemy in an area. Deals high damage to cover. I believe the vanilla gunner also gets a similar ability. It should be, what's it called again? I think the grenadier or the something in vanilla. But basically, this is the same ability there. Big cone, lots of damage. Does shoot through cover, so you do have to, or does check for cover. So you do have to have good accuracy if you want to make good use out of this. This is mostly used to engage on groups of enemies that are clumped together. If you have a perk like Shadow Strike, which I don't see over here, so that would be something that you roll in the XCOM row. But if you do have Shadow Strike, that's actually a really good perk to pick up. Sniper Rifle. Squad Sight and Double Tap. Fire a standard shot and gain a second action restricted to an additional shot or overwatching. This is something that kind of doesn't really mesh with a lot of her perks. She does have some things that might work with it. For example, she does get Shredder, she does get Aggression. So there's like some value in that, but it's one of those things that doesn't exactly really... actually, she does have Dervish over here. Double Tap has a 1-turn cooldown, so you can actually double tap every round if you set this up correctly. That's an interesting look. Concentration. You could do a build like that. For a Jane Kelly to actually take the sniper rifle, I would probably want that Jane Kelly to have like really high aim and really low mobility. Something like 13 mobility or lower is something where I would start considering to just turn her into a sniper rifle unit once she gets to Master Sergeant. Vector Rifle. Squad Sight and a Burst Fire. An automatic 2-shot burst has 2-turn cooldown. Very similar to the sniper rifle thing. The difference is that there's a longer cooldown, so you don't get to shoot this every round even if you score a kill with Dervish. And the Vector Rifle also does less damage than the Sniper Rifle. The main difference, though, is that you get to move and shoot with the Vector Rifle. This is something I do with like a high accuracy, maybe low health Jane Kelly kind of build. For the most part, though, I would prefer to play with her other tools, but it's honestly not bad. Quite solid, and there's actually lots of shooting perks that you can use with it. So Squad Sight Disabling Shot, she gets Aggression, Concentration, Shredder. She does get some shooting perks around here, and these are actually quite relevant ones for multi-shot abilities like Shredder. Being able to shoot twice is excellent for any Shredder unit. Finally, here's the interesting one that I like. Battle Lord. You can actually teach Jane Kelly Battle Lord. Unfortunately, you have to give her one of the weaker guns, so her shooting is going to be significantly weaker, but being able to just chop with her sword every single round can be kind of interesting in its own way. And yeah, it's the exact same as the one that the Skirmishers have. Now down here are her secondary weapons. You can either take the sword for a stun on demand, very good, very powerful. I don't know what the cooldown on this is, but depending on the cooldown, It could be an auto pick, or it could just be something that's about average. Depends on how it compares to having disabling shot. After that, you got the combat knife. Crippling Blow, Crippling Slash against adjacent enemy inflicts a permanent non-stacking debuff that severely reduces the target's mobility, aim, and dodge. I believe this is the same as the Hamstring perk that certain knife-wielding classes get, but essentially it's a pretty hefty reduction to accuracy, as well as mobility and dodge. This is really good for certain boss units, like, for example, if you cripple a Sectopod, that thing is going to be significantly less dangerous towards your team. For extended firefights against the Hunter chosen, being able to just lower his accuracy will be incredibly helpful for your team if you can get decent cover and maybe some smoke grenade coverage on your squad. That will help you maintain your turns against him. The final one over here is Ripjack, Combat Advance. Dashing melee attack costs a single action, doesn't end the turn, and grants a movement-only action. So essentially you get to run in with both your moves, so 2 moves distance in, kind of like run and gun. Costs a single action, so you get to run in, hit them, then you get to use your shotgun against them, and then after that, if you still have a movement action left over from Marauder, you can actually walk back out. A very interesting type of thing. However, in order to take that and make the most use out of it, you have to take Marauder, and that means you're also giving up Shadow Step. So, that's something you're gonna have to consider whether or not you want to do all that. But let's go through the different types of builds that we might be able to do with Jane Kelly. I'm going to go through my preferred one first. I have 2 preferred builds. One is the Bullpup, one is the Shotgun, and then after that you just pick your melee weapon of choice. So let's start with the Shotgun one, since this is kind of her default loadout. Sword and Shotgun. How do we build that? Well, a lot of enemies in Beyond Legendary get some very deadly Overwatch-based attacks. Enemies have like things that allow them to counterattack you when you close within melee range, which is just deadly for anyone with a sword if they don't have Shadow Step. So this is pretty much mandatory if you're planning on using the sword on her at all, or even the shotgun for the most part. I think the only time you wouldn't take this is if you already rolled something like Lightning Reflexes down here or some other Overwatch evasion perk, or if you're planning on going with Sniper Rifle and Vector Rifle, in which case you would take Marauder. If you're planning on doing an ambush build, you could also do Phantom, or if you just want her to be a scout. But for this build though, we're making her into a close quarters killer. She has some very powerful close range abilities. It would be a shame not to take advantage of that. Now the next perk over here is a slightly tougher choice. You pick these kind of depending on what you're planning on using with her most. I like the sword. Keen Edge is a very stacked perk. Sword attacks deal bonus damage and ignore armor. One of the tough things about swords in regular Long War 2 was their ability to get through armor. Armor was just one of those things that they couldn't really get through. They didn't have shredding abilities and they didn't have armor piercing abilities. This perk gives you so much armor piercing. +2 armor piercing at the first rank of swords is incredibly powerful. There's even a perk out there that just offers +1 damage and +10 accuracy. This one gives +1 damage and +2 armor piercing, which is probably arguably a lot better. If you wanted to go with the shotgun more and you wanted just more reliable range damage, you can also opt to take Slugshot. It's not bad at all, and it's excellent for killing the Advent drones actually, as well as mechs later on. A lot of things will be spawning with 2 armor in the early / mid game kind of range, so this is not a bad time to pick up a perk like Slugshot and just make use of that to get you through some of the stuff in the early parts, especially if you're having trouble with it. Shredder is the other option if you want her to be more of a supporting unit. If you're planning on doing the Sniper Rifle or the Vector Rifle, I would probably recommend the Shredder perk. But if you're doing the Shotgun, you kind of want the things that you shoot at close range to just be dead, not like support your teammate with that. So I would probably mostly opt for Shredder if I'm doing a ranged build on Jane Kelly. Then next up, we got some more perks over here. You have access to Lightfoot, Concentration, and Sixth Sense. Lightfoot is an interesting one. +3 mobility is quite good, and it is actually something that our Jane Kelly would really appreciate right now with only 14 mobility. I'm heavily leaning towards this, however, these other perks down here are also quite strong. Concentration. Your grazing attacks are automatically upgraded to normal hits. And due to the Long War 2 mechanics of the Graze Band, which I'll probably explain in the next mission a little bit more in depth for you guys. But basically, a lot of times you will end up grazing your targets when you least want it to happen. This is going to help you get through that, but there's also 2 more bonuses to taking concentration. So the second bonus is that you can now attack mutons with your melee attacks, and they cannot counterattack. How the muton counterattack calculation goes is when you try to melee a muton, they gain a large amount of dodge. I think it was like 75% dodge or something like that. And if your attack ends up grazing them due to the dodge, it will get downgraded to 0 damage and get parried and riposted, which basically means you get smacked back in the face. And that will kill you in a lot of situations, so you don't want that to happen. If you take concentration, grazing attacks are automatically upgraded to normal hits. That means you can hit a muton no matter what, and it will always be a normal hit. He will never be able to parry your attacks. This is incredibly powerful if you're struggling against mutons that have counter-attacking capabilities. All the regular mutons, as well as the long war variations of mutons, so Muton Centurion, Muton Elite, those things are all capable of counterattacking. So this is not a bad perk to take if you're having trouble dealing with those things. And the final reason you would want to take concentration is for hitting the Chosen. The Chosen all gain an ability called Inviter, which means within 4 tiles of a radius around them, they gain 40 dodge against all those attacks. So pretty much like 40% of all of your attacks with Gene Kelly will graze them otherwise, unless you take concentration. If killing the Chosen is a top priority for you with Gene Kelly, this is a very good perk to take, and I would highly recommend it. Very, very powerful. Even if you're not planning on killing the Chosen, or if the Chosen are already dead, it's still a very good perk to have just to get past mutons and get past the average graze damage that pops up in calculations all the time. Final perk over here is Sixth Sense. I have a huge love for this perk. I've been taking this on all of my streamed runs of Beyond Legendary, and it's been working wonders, honestly. I think if you're not desperate for these 2 perks, this is also an excellent perk to take. Like, honestly, everything within the Sergeant rank is great for Gene Kelly. But why is Sixth Sense good? You're immune to multi-target and area attacks. The enemy grenades don't affect you, the Viper Poison Spit won't affect you, although if you move from within the Poison Spit, it'll still inflict poison. But what else doesn't affect you? The mech micro missiles don't affect you. The big one though, Purifiers do not affect you in any way, whether it's their flamethrower or their self-destruct. None of that affects you, and Purifiers are kind of like the primary counter to melee attackers in this mod. So it's one of those things where if you're a melee attacker, for the most part, you have a huge fear of Purifiers. This completely negates that fear. You can run up to them, let them self-destruct in your face, you don't care, you just chop them, and combined with Keen Edge, you have armor piercing on this. You can get up to a Purifier and destroy them very easily. Being a fire unit, they are one of the most deadly enemies that the enemies can wield. And they actually do a ton of damage in Beyond Legendary. I think the advanced Purifiers, if they burn you, it ticks for like 8 damage or some nutty number like that. It's absolutely insane. Your people will die if they get burned. And Jane Kelly, not only is she immune to them, she can distract them. So let's say, for example, you have your team, right? And your team's in this corner, the enemy team's up here, and you guys are fighting across this area. The enemy Purifier starts running towards your team. You put Jane Kelly right here next to him, she can like shoot at the guys up in the back line and just distract the Purifier. He'll keep on trying to burn her with the flamethrower, and she'll just keep dodging every single flamethrower that he tries to launch at her. Now, unfortunately, if he lights the floor underneath her on fire, when she tries to move, she's going to get lit on fire. So at some point, you're going to want to give her a hazmat vest if you're going to plan on building her for this route. But you set that up, and you got a great way of distracting enemy Purifiers. This is a really powerful perk. At first it might sound like, oh, but you're just building this just to get past one enemy type. That one enemy type counters so many XCOM builds out there. It's very bulky, you can't close in against it, and you can't burn that enemy type. And I believe you also can't poison or do anything against it. It has guaranteed hit with its flamethrowers, unlike our chem throwers, so taking cover and hunkering down against it does nothing. This is one of the few answers that XCOM has for a unit like that. I highly recommend this if you don't absolutely have to take these other perks. Now then, down here we have Trench Gun, Bladestorm, and Aggression. So if you're planning on doing an ambush build right now, if you're planning on doing something with like Phantom and you have something like Shadow Strike, let's say, then Trench Gun is your best friend. It fires a cone-shaped blast, and that cone-shaped blast will do shotgun damage to everything within that cone. So if there's 3 enemies within that cone, you're hitting 3 things with a shotgun. That's like getting to shoot 3 times with a shotgun, right? The damage output, the damage multiplier is there. It's very high value if you can set this up. But getting into position for this is quite challenging. You need a lot of mobility, and you'll probably also need to take Lightfoot if you want to actually get away with doing that. But this is a very powerful perk. If you do roll Shadow Strike down here, which is the vanilla perk that gives you plus 50 aim and plus 50 crit chance while you're in stealth, when you click on something while you're in concealment with your Phantom, you're going to see like 100% crit, 100% hit, and it'll just be so exciting to be able to see that on like 4 enemy units before they've even taken an action yet. But this is a very specific thing. If you want to set this up, you can. The Gorilla class can also do this. We've seen a few of those get rolled on our soldiers, but we didn't pick it. The Gorilla class is kind of more focused on that. But if you do end up getting Shadow Strike down here, though, highly recommend it. Bladestorm. This is the vanilla perk right here. Bladestorm is only really good if you get access to cool under pressure, otherwise it's kind of unreliable, or if you have really high accuracy on your Jane Kelly. She gets like probably around the 70-80% chance to hit in the late game, and probably around like a 60-70% chance to hit in the mid and early game. It's kind of unreliable. If you do get cool under pressure though, it becomes a lot more reliable, and you can probably get 100% accuracy on it if you give her like a couple of aim bonuses, or if she just naturally has good aim. Something to consider. You could do it. It gives you an extra hit with your sword, and it's quite solid. We have this ourselves on our Jane Kelly, and we might consider it depending on how we're feeling.
I don't see anybody else stepping up other than the
And then the final perk over here is Aggression. Aggression is one of those perks when you first start playing, it doesn't seem like a lot, but as you start playing more, it's one of those things where you're like, oh shoot, this is actually really good. So 30% crit chance. The sword itself, I believe the starting sword gives you not a lot, it's only 10%. But the late game swords though, those give you a lot. Late game swords can give you up to like 20% crit chance or something. So combine that with this 30% crit chance, you have yourself a 50% crit chance on your swords. 50% chance that things just automatically die when you chop them. Really powerful actually. I highly recommend this if you're not planning on doing a build with any of these other perks. And I will probably pick this myself. Next set of perks, Conceal is going to be if you're planning on doing some sort of ambush scouting build. Kind of self-explanatory there. You want more concealment for more ambushes with your trench gun. The big perks, though, are going to be down here if you don't have something specific. Sidewinder allows the Crasher to evade a damaging attack and instantly gain a movement action. Can activate once every 3 turns. So, if you have this active, so if it's not on cooldown, what you're allowed to do with Jane Kelly is you're allowed to run into the open, chop something, and shoot it to death. And she'll be standing out in the open. The next time an enemy shoots at her, she'll automatically dodge it, and then you can take that chance to run her back into cover to safety. It's a very, very good perk for the close range type of Jane Kelly builds. If you're ever doing shotguns, if you're ever doing swords, this is, in my opinion, the best perk that you can take on her. The other perk down here is Dervish. Once per turn, killing an enemy reduces all your ability cooldowns by 1 turn. Jane Kelly doesn't really have a lot of cooldown-based perks if you're planning on doing shotguns and swords. If you're doing ambush builds, then you might need some cooldown reduction on your trench gun, you might want cooldown reduction on your shotgun wedding, and all those other perks that might be found in Chimera over here. But for the most part though, I don't really feel like I need my cooldowns that often. A lot of times I'm just clicking chop chop or chop shoot, or doing something with Jane Kelly to just kill something with her basic attacks. So for the most part, I would prefer to just allow her to position much more aggressively using Sidewinder. Also, as soon as you take this perk, she'll end up being the one to survive all your worst missions also, so that's pretty neat. But this is a perk that I'm a huge fan of. Next up, we've got a difficult choice over here. We've got 3 very good perks. So Disabling Shot. Beyond Legendary has a lot of boss units, so you aren't always going to be able to alpha strike everything. I know a lot of XCOM players like to say it's better to make sure everything is dead rather than let them take actions, but you can't always do that in Beyond Legendary. The Disabling Shot is a very powerful perk for that very reason. She comes with things like Aggression, and if she gets a flank on the enemies, you can get near 100% crit chances. So this is not just a 1-turn stun, this will likely end up being a 2-turn stun due to how Disabling Shot works. Over here, we have Close Encounters. Once per turn, gain a bonus action after taking a shot at an enemy within 4 tiles. So we've seen this perk before. It's a multi-shot perk as long as you're close range, and Jane Kelly will be in close range quite often, so if you want a multi-shot perk, this is the way to go. The final perk down here is Butcher. Increases damage against organic targets by 30%. Now, this is strictly worse than just being able to shoot twice in most instances. The one instance in which you would take Butcher is if you're planning on doing a Bullpup Battlelord build. The Bullpup Battlelord build means she gets to take an extra action for every enemy that takes a turn. For the most part, that extra action will be the sword, because the sword has both movement and damage built into it. With the shotgun, you have to stand still and shoot or reposition with your Battlelord action, and that basically halves your damage output if you have to move next to an enemy and then shoot. The sword will let you just chop every single enemy action. So I highly recommend that if you're going to plan on taking Chimera for the Battlelord build, you would take Butcher for that. If you're planning on doing more shotgun related stuff, then you would probably want Close Encounters. If you feel like your team needs more stuns or more support, Disabling Shot is also a very good perk. For the most part, I'm going to be leaning towards one of these two most likely. I think I want Jane Kelly to serve more of a carry role, in which she removes enemies from the map. Alright, the final perk over here. We got Shotgun Wedding. Fire a short-range, cone-based attack against up to 3 visible enemies in the cone. Each attack can hit multiple targets. So, what does that actually mean? There's a cone. So imagine a cone, right? Let's say there are 3 enemies in that cone. I believe how that works is you fire multiple shots against all 3 of those enemies. Requires 3 ammo to activate. Consumes 2 upon activation and 1 for each shot. I believe you're going to need to have a expanded magazine for this gun if you're planning on doing this. The initial cone and the attack cone are 8 tiles long and 8 tiles wide. Attack cone is centered on the primary target. The attack is performed against. I'm not quite sure exactly what this means. I haven't really been able to play with this perk very much. But from what I'm reading here, it sounds like you're taking 3 shots. 3 visible enemies in a cone. Each attack can hit multiple targets. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I'm just assuming, with the way that this is that this is written and the way modders tend to code perks at Master Sergeant, I'm assuming this is just something where you have to imagine in your head, you set up a cone, anything that's inside of that cone is basically just dead as soon as you click the shoot button. I'm assuming it's like 3 shots against each of those enemies, like you're doing 1 cone attack on 1 enemy, another cone attack on another enemy, and another cone attack on a 3rd enemy. And if all of them are close enough to each other, you just get 3 cone attacks against them. So like 3 trench guns maybe? I won't talk too much about this because I don't seem to understand this exactly. I'll talk about the perks that I actually do know though. Reaper over here, this is the same as the vanilla perk. You chop something with your sword. If you kill it, you get to keep chopping. Your damage is reduced on each subsequent chop. Very straightforward. And if you're planning on doing... If you don't want to take Battlelord, like you don't want to take Chimera, but you want to take something else, and you want to use swords, Reaper is really the way to go. If you are planning on playing with Reaper, you can consider taking Dervish, and this will lower the cooldown on Reaper on the first chop. Unfortunately, this is once per turn, so if you kill 5 enemies in 1 turn, you don't get your cooldown on Reaper refunded. Sidewinder is still good for this build, though, if you want to do that. But for the most part, this is kind of what I would do if I was going to do Reaper. Maybe Concentration for more reliability. Probably something like this, and this, or this. If I were to do a build with Reaper. One of the benefits that she gets over other Reaper classes is that she also gets Butcher, so she's going to be doing a lot of bonus damage, and she also has access to things like armor piercing and such. So that's quite nice. Now, for the final set of perks, though, now let's go talk about how we can build her around Chimera, the most exciting thing here. The one that stands out to me most is Shotgun, actually. If you have a very high mobility Jane Kelly, this is really where this perk will probably shine the most. What you can do is you can take Jane Kelly, stand her next to an enemy, or use Lightning Slash to get up to an enemy, and you get to take 1 assault shot for free, followed by a close encounters shot once again, and then you can shoot again with an extra action. That would essentially be a triple shot build. You can count that as 4 hits if you count Lightning Slash. You can do up to 4 hits in 1 turn. That is incredibly impressive. Very high damage output. I think very few units in the game can actually match this level of damage output. This will probably kill anything that can't take reaction abilities against you. It will be a little bit weaker against the Chosen, because if you Lightning Slash up to a Chosen and you hit them, they're just going to walk away from you with their ability, or if it's the Assassin, she'll start beating you up. So unfortunately, this won't be as effective against the Chosen. However, it is quite solid against the Warlock, probably, because the Warlock tends to stand still and just cast his abilities. So if you can get up to the Warlock with this, you can probably dish out like a third of his life in damage with just this entire combo by itself. You can also take the Ripjack with this type of build, dashing melee attack. So instead of having to use a blue move to get up your weapon, you can now use a double move to get up to the enemies and still pull off the same combo here. And if you end up taking Marauder, you can actually probably get a bonus action to flee to safety too. Although, like I said before, I probably won't take Marauder unless I'm doing sniper rifles, or if I'm taking the build to a perk like Lightning Reflexes down here to help me get through Overwatch. Okay, so the shotgun build is pretty self-explanatory. I explained cannon already. For the most part, everything here is self-explanatory. The sniper, vector, and the rifle builds will all be relying on things like aggression, dervish, shredder, all the shooting perks down here. Sword and combat knife, this is really just preference. Sword allows you to stun, so this works against any type of boss units that aren't immune to stuns. The Chosen are immune, so this won't work against them. But there are tons of boss units in Beyond Legendary, so stuns aren't bad at all by any stretch of the imagination. Highly recommend taking this if you're not afraid of the Chosen. Crippling Blow is better against the Chosen, like the Hunter and the Warlock. It kind of cripples their stats a bit, and allows you to take advantage of them for the rest of the mission, in fact. This is permanent, so if you can stack enough of those permanent type of debuffs, so this is non-stacking with itself, but there's a different perk out there called Bullseye that also inflicts an aim debuff. If you can get both this and that perk onto a boss unit, you can kind of ignore them for the entire mission, which is kind of nice. And yeah, that is going to be the build. For the most part, I'm going to lean towards taking Chimera into some sort of probably Sword Jane Kelly with Bullpup. I think I want to take advantage of a kind of Sword Battle Lord user kind of unit. So this is going to be the build that we go with Jane Kelly. If I find that her mobility just isn't enough, I'll consider taking Lightfoot over one of these perks down here. I think it's going to be between Lightfoot and Sixth Sense for our Jane Kelly. I really don't like Advent Purifiers. They counter a lot of the builds that I like using, so having a way to kill them and deal with them is, in my opinion, just a really important thing to have. Now, one of the ways to help you decide if you're not really sure how you want to build your Jane Kelly between all of these Master Sergeant perks is you can take a look down here for some inspiration, see if there's anything that kind of works with your Jane Kelly. We do have Cool Under Pressure, so we do have access to something like Bladestorm. That's kind of interesting. Our intelligence is kind of low, so we'll probably be able to learn like one of the higher level things or a couple of the lower level things. Bladestorm is one of the possible options if we want to go in that direction. Another option that we can opt to go for is a shooting build. We do actually have access to Nimble Hands. The shotgun build uses up a lot of ammo. Between the assault shot as well as the close encounters double shot, we're going to be taking up like 3 ammo per round. This is actually not a bad choice. If I had higher mobility, I'd probably lean into this a little bit more, but we don't have that higher mobility, unfortunately. Anatomy is a solid perk to take. It's just straight up 2 armor piercing and bonus critical chance. I am very likely going to be taking this because combined with aggression, we can have like around the 65% crit chance on most of the things that we attack with our sword. And if we're shooting at stuff with our shotgun, we're pretty much getting a 100% crit chance on the flanks. So I'll probably lean into anatomy for this build. We have survivability, we have some movement, we have some other stuff down here. For the most part, I think most of the stuff doesn't compare to just raw numbers upgrade from anatomy, so I will probably be taking this. This is a perk that works on both the sword as well as the shotgun. It's very powerful, very straightforward. That's going to be our Jane Kelly right there. Alright then, after that we have our Frost Purifier. Oh, this guy got hit so hard. Don't mind those strange baby crying animation that they have. They're just kind of messed up for the Geoscape, or for the base animations. But this is a very unique class. This is one of the Advent defectors. The Frost Purifier is an unhinged unit that refuses to take cover for some reason, but because of their armor and durability, it isn't a hindrance. They bring to combat their Cryolator, which serves as an excellent source of area of effect damage, and their axe, which can deal devastating blows to enemies. When questioned about their range capabilities, they simply pointed to the axe on their back. So, how does this unit function? They come with very high mobility. This one has incredible amounts of dodge, and they also have half cover built into them to make up for the fact that they can't take cover. They come with a lot of starting perks, so let's go through each of these. Frost Strike. Grant dash to a target and strike them with your axe, applying Chill. Now, Chill is a new type of debuff, similar to how there's like Burn, Poison, Acid, Disorient. This is a debuff that reduces the enemy's mobility and dodge stat. So when you are chilled, you have more of a chance to get hit for full damage, and you have more of and you have less movement. So this is really good, especially on certain enemy types like chrysalids, drones if you don't want them to move around a lot, stun lancers. This is like the type of enemies that you would apply chill to. The chosen are immune to chill, but the second aspect of chill is that it stacks. So you can stack it up to 3 times. The first stack is just a minor movement penalty and dodge penalty. The second stack is much more significant, and you'll notice that soldiers tend to have not a lot of ability to move when that happens. This is a debuff that's particularly bad for XCOM soldiers if the enemies use it on you, because on timed missions you need to get out. If you can't get out fast enough, you're going to get stuck there and left behind. The third stack of chill is actually just straight up freeze. So essentially, this takes one of the more broken debuffs, like freeze, and tries to balance it by requiring 3 stacks of a debuff. A very interesting balance change to it, and I'm honestly a huge fan of it. It feels fair, and it also plays very interestingly. Next ability here is the Glacial Throw. Throw a glacial axe at your enemy. Animation currently not working. But yeah, you get to throw an axe at an enemy. This costs only 1 action, so you're allowed to throw your axe and then chop something, or throw your axe and then use your Cryolator to hit something. The Cryolator is essentially the Chem Thrower, so it uses accuracy checks and is a cone-based weapon, but instead of burns, it inflicts chill. Now, these guys also get the Predator ability, which is kind of interesting. Your ranged attacks gain 15 bonus aim and 15 bonus crit chance against enemies that are flanked or out of cover. So what this basically means is that if you can flank an enemy with this guy, and you use your axe throw or your Cryolator, you're pretty much guaranteed to hit them, and you have a very high chance of critting them. It's a very nice perk. I think this is a very loaded perk, actually, but in modded XCOM, this seems to just be everywhere in the early ranks. It increases reliability of units by a really, really significant amount, so it's a perk that I think is very powerful. It's but a scratch. Wound timers are reduced by 3 HP. This is a unit that can't take cover, so naturally they will end up taking a bit more damage than usual. Especially when you're in a situation where you need everyone in full cover, but this guy can't get inside full cover, and he's just going to get shot at. Now, he seems kind of squishy right now, especially on that last mission he went on, but he's got really good dodge, he's got really good defense, and these guys actually gain armor on promotions as like a stat that they will gain. So let's take a look at their equipment next. So we got the Cryolator here. It does 3 to 5 damage, and deals reduced damage to enemies that cannot be frozen. Huh, didn't realize it had a passive for that. But yeah, pretty straightforward. You'll get to see more of this in action as we play more. Frost Axe is also just 3 to 5 damage. It uses the model for the Plasma Throwing Axe from the Alien Hunters DLC, but it's not the same thing. Yeah, it's got 20 aim bonus, actually. Oh, wow. This thing is actually loaded with stats. It's got 15 crit chance also. Very interesting weapon. Alright, so this guy's got a couple of builds. I usually prefer to do a build that is slightly tanky, just because he can't take cover, so you really need to make sure that this guy can survive hits. For the most part, the build that I am going to go for this guy will probably involve using the sword and armor a little bit. I'm a huge fan of using the sword on this guy. Guaranteed damage is always a nice thing to have. So let's start by looking at some of their perks. For this one, I don't really have like a set build that I like to go for. It kind of depends on what I roll down here. So we'll go through each line and then, actually no, let's go through this one like this. That way we can just look at each thing and decide on the best perk for each rank. So the first rank here is Bring 'em On. Gain +1 damage on critical hits for every 2 enemies you can see, up to a maximum number of 8. It's basically aggression, except instead of for crit chance, it's for crit damage. More enemies, you do more. Lightfoot, +3 mobility, and harder to detect while concealed. This really isn't a unit that relies on ambushing enemies, so the detection thing is just kind of a nice little bonus, but the main thing you would pick this for is the +3 mobility. Keen Edge over here, axe attacks deal plus damage and ignore armor. This is the same thing that Jane Kelly has. Very powerful perk. If you're planning on focusing on using swords on this guy, this is the perk that I would probably end up taking. But if you're planning on doing something involving the Cryolator, you might want to take aggression and Bring 'em On for that bonus damage. This is a unit that gets access to a lot of crit chance because they get Predator by default. If you're not planning on using swords, I would say this is probably the better option. Lightfoot is great also, but this guy tends to have really good mobility already. 15 mobility is about average, and 17 mobility is, in my opinion, considered pretty high. So unless you really feel like you need that mobility, I would probably recommend just taking these 2 perks or this perk down here. Now, the reason why I'm not going for the aggression build and the critical hit damage build is because I really want to take galvanized armor on this unit. +1 armor, and the last 1 armor cannot be shredded. Enemy shred is reduced by 1 against this unit. This is very good for tank builds, and for the most part, I think we're going to probably do a tank build with this guy. Our guy here has 27 dodge, that's an incredibly high amount of dodge. A quarter of all attacks against this guy are going to end up grazing. So that's very solid. I'm going to probably take Galvanized Armor. The other option is Blade Master. If you want lots of damage with your sword, you can. I find that the accuracy isn't particularly relevant though. The accuracy on this guy isn't particularly relevant because if you look at this sword, it already gets +20 aim. So for the most part, I think that aim isn't as necessary on this guy. He starts off with 68 accuracy, +20 aim with the sword is 88 accuracy. Ignore the 40, that's just a visual error. So he has 88 accuracy with the sword already, and as he ranks up, he's going to gain at least 12 accuracy on his way to max rank. So I wouldn't worry about getting 100% accuracy swords. This is if you really feel like you need that early game crutch, but I think Galvanized Armor is just better overall. Now down here, we have access to Cold Snap, Crusader's Rage, and Glacial Advance. Frost Strike and Throwing Axe abilities now grant a movement-only action. So now you can do something like run in, chop something, and run to safety. This guy doesn't really take cover, but creating some distance between you and the enemies is still a really good thing. And it also allows you to do hit and run tactics, so if you feel like this guy just isn't tanky enough to take hits, you could just have him walk out, throw an axe, walk back to safety within like, maybe within a smoke grenade or behind a wall somewhere where the enemies can't see him. This is pretty solid for hit and run tactics. I actually do like that idea. If you don't want to take Galvanized Armor, you will probably want to take Glacial Advance. You can do a throwing axe build with aggression and Glacial Advance combined with Predator, and the fact that if you flank an enemy you get all these bonuses. You can pretty much reach like 100% crit chance on your axe throws, and you can do a really fun hit and run type build. Up here we have Cold Snap. Your first use of the Purifier's Ice Thrower per turn will refund the action used. So essentially this gives him 2 uses of the Ice Thrower, or the ability to run out, Ice Thrower, then run back to safety. Very interesting perk, and being able to double hit with the Ice Thrower is actually very solid amounts of damage. If I wasn't planning on building mostly tank with him, I might consider doing that. I think for the most part though, I might consider doing Crusader's Rage. Gain 25% damage boost for every 25% HP missing, up to 50% damage boost, and reduces the wound recovery times for this soldier by 6 HP. So I kinda like this. And the reason for this is because we already have another perk up here, reduces wound timers by 3 HP. So we can take up to 9 HP worth of damage, and we will still not be sent to the med bay. Being able to use this soldier more often like this will also allow us to have a tank on more missions available, and he will rank up just really fast because of this. So I kind of like this. EXP is a premium resource, and it's something that you might not consider too much on a build like this. But being able to resist a 9 damage, we don't even have 9 HP yet, but once we start building up armor and start leveling up a bit, we're going to end up having like 15 HP and some big numbers. Being able to take half your life in damage as a tank and not get put in the medbay is very, very powerful. I will probably end up going in that direction and kind of go more of like a almost full tank build with that guy. Thousands to go. Once per turn after killing an enemy with your primary weapon, you may take an additional non-movement action, passive. This is good for chain kills, kind of self-explanatory there. Throw an axe at your enemy. If it is lethal, the actions are refunded. 4-turn cooldown. Also very self-explanatory. I believe this thing gets past sustain. The burial series of perks, I believe, all do that. So if you're attacking an Advent Priest, this is one of the few ways to actually one-shot him. Kind of an interesting thing here. And then finally, you got combatives. Automatically parry melee attacks that graze or miss against you, and counterattack with your primary weapon. At first, this sounds like it might be useful, and it was useful in the past. In base game Long War 2, you could stand next to a Muton, and then it would be guaranteed to use its melee attack against you, and then you just counterattack it and hit it back. In Ted Jam, and I think in Long War the Chosen, they nerfed it a bit by making it so that the Muton's melee attack gets put on cooldown. So you can't just park this guy next to a Muton and just keep on counterattacking them, unfortunately. So, yeah. And I believe Chrysalids and Stun Lancers are kind of risky to use this on, because Stun Lancers kind of pick the best target to attack. So even though you're standing closest to them, because this guy has such high dodge stat, they'll decide to attack someone else instead. This functions very similar to the way the Muton counterattack works. Basically, when an enemy attacks you, you get, I believe it explains it here. Yeah, okay. So when an enemy does a melee attack against you, you gain 90 dodge against the first melee attack against you. And then plus the 10 dodge that you have, as well as the 27 dodge over here, you pretty much have a 100% chance to make sure that the hit gets turned into a graze. And with combatives, that attack then gets downgraded into a parry, and then you attack them back with your melee weapon. Overall, if you can set it up, it's very powerful. It negates one enemy attack and gives you +1 attack on your turn, so it's basically a +2 for your team. However, for the most part, it's not as useful in Beyond Legendary, especially because Reshi made it so that Berserkers get an ability that upgrades their attacks if they graze into critical hits. You kind of don't want to take this if you want to be able to stand and tank a Berserker. You can still take this for the +10 dodge, and I'm actually almost tempted to do so. We can get ourselves up to 37 dodge, which essentially changes it so that instead of 1 in 4 attacks against us graze, 1 in 3 attacks against us graze. That's actually not bad. Combine that with hard target down here, we can make a very, very fun dodge tank soldier. I might consider this just for that purpose, although I have to keep in mind not to let him get hit by Berserkers. But this can be useful. This can be useful. It has its uses still. We do lose out on offensive utility, which might seem strange, but I value tanking quite a bit in Beyond Legendary. It's not like regular XCOM modes where you can just be like, alright, the right answer is just use all your tools to kill all the enemies. Sometimes you just can't kill all the enemies and you have to take hits. Having a unit that's capable of taking multiple hits is very valuable to have on the team. So I'm going to continue building this guy specifically for the role of taking hits. Now then, the next perk over here that we're going to take is probably going to be Lightning Reflexes. This guy can single-handedly clear out every single shot against him. Now, Lightning Reflexes is a bit different from how it works in Vanilla. In Vanilla, you're guaranteed to dodge your first Overwatch shot, and then that's it. In Long War, reaction shots against you have significantly decreased chance to hit. The first shot against you is minus 100% chance to hit. The second at minus 80, the third at minus 60, the fourth at minus 40. So essentially you're taking a bit of a risk, right? Your first shot, they're guaranteed to miss. But on the subsequent shots though, you have a progressively higher and higher chance of getting a hit. So if there's like 5 enemies on Overwatch, you're likely to clear out like the first 2, maybe 3, and then the subsequent ones will probably hit you. Now, normally for other soldiers, this is kind of a bad thing, but with this guy, he's actually a tank. So he can actually get away with absorbing every single one of those blows. And that's exactly what we're going to be aiming for with this guy over here. More Frost Axe throwing as a free action. There's a lot of action economy with the Frost Axe tossing, which makes you wonder, where is he getting all these axes? He only has one. Alright, next up, we're going to be taking damage control. This is self-explanatory. After taking damage, gain 2 armor until the end of your turn. Very nice to just have a lot of tankiness on the soldier. You can also take lethal if you're planning on boosting the damage of your cryolator. This is particularly relevant if you're taking cold snap. You also have access to run and slice, move to and slice a target. Uses 1 action and does not end the turn, but can only be used once per turn. This is another one of those damage output multipliers, so if you're not planning on making this guy into a tank, you can just make him into like a pure damage output monster. He can run and slice into the enemy team, throw a free axe, and then throw a killing axe for another free action, and then chop again, throw again, or cryolate again. You can get up to like 4 hits. Jane Kelly was able to do that. This guy can do so too, although he does have to get kills with his abilities, but getting kills probably isn't too hard with this guy if you're building full bottom row here. Alright, and then the final perk over here is going to be Quick Frost, Untouchable, and Burial Blade. Since we're being a tank and we're just taking the hits, I don't actually need to have Untouchable. I could consider taking Burial Blade on this guy, or I could consider just taking Quick Frost on this guy. I'm not really quite sure. I think it's kind of up for grabs depending on how we're feeling his build is playing out and how tough the enemies that we're finding are. If we find that the enemies are just dying really easily to this guy, then I'll probably take Untouchable, but if we're having trouble killing enemies, I might consider taking Quick Frost. It also applies 2 aspects of chill on the enemies, so if I have one other Frost unit on the squad, or if this guy already hit them once, we can actually just instantly freeze enemies with Quick Frost. I'm thinking I'm leaning towards Quick Frost. Burial Blade's the final choice over here. It's one of the few ways that we can get through sustain enemies. For the most part, I'm thinking this is kind of up for grabs depending on how annoying sustain enemies can get, but I'm leaning towards Quick Frost for that freeze. Now, for this guy's build over here, we got a couple of extra options down here.
It's dank, and it's
Defensive maneuvers.
This ship isn't all that different from
I
the old
believe this
days.
does apply to the soldiers themselves, so this guy will get an extra 10 defense and 10 dodge. I'll probably take that. And then finally, we're also going to be taking Hard Target. Plus 3 dodge per enemy you can see, up to a maximum of 30. So if there's 10 enemies on the map, we're going to get 30 dodge, plus another 10 over here, so that's 40 dodge, plus the 27 over here. That's already 67 dodge. Since I'm taking combatives, I'm going to have 77 dodge total. So 77% of the attacks against us, if we don't factor in crit and stuff, is going to be grazing. That is actually amazing. And because we'll have so much armor, the grazes will all just be doing 1 damage to this guy. Once we start plopping on more health on top of this guy, he's going to be able to take like 10, 20 hits on the enemy turns, and then we'll just medkit him back up and just continue letting him take hits. And then with Tis But a Scratch and Crusader's Rage, this guy should be able to weather large amounts of fire on enemy turns, provided that they're not getting shot at by a boss unit. Very powerful, and this is going to be one of our solutions for dealing with situations where there's like a really threatening enemy followed by a lot of trash mobs around them. Instead of having to split my fire upon killing the trash mobs and the boss, now we can focus everything on the boss and have the trash mobs shoot at this guy. So that is going to be our build with this fellow, 25 points and 15 points. That is going to be 40 points exactly. That should be just enough to learn with average combat intelligence. Alright, and the final class over here is going to be the Sidewinder. Alright, so the Sidewinder is a kind of stealthy, slip behind the enemy teams, shoot them from flanks type of snake. They hold a weapon similar to an SMG, the Sidewinder SMG. So this does 3 to 4 damage. It's a little bit less damage than an assault rifle. This is actually a little bit stronger than a basic SMG though, so that's kind of nice. It has a 3 clip size, decent critical hit chance actually, and this guy has a ton of mobility. Now, unlike the standard Viper, I believe this thing does not learn tongue grab unless you learn it here. So you will not get a chance to just automatically tongue grab stuff right from the start. And I'm not sure if this unit gets the bind ability to start with. I don't believe Sidewinders can bind. But over here, as you guys saw in the first mission, this thing does get Shadow Step. It's an excellent unit for sneaking past enemy overwatches to get surprise shots off against them. It gets the ability to reposition to safety. It's got a decent dodge stat, and it's got the parkour ability. It can climb up walls without a ladder, and it also comes with Poison Spit. Now this variation of Poison Spit is a little bit more powerful than the enemy's Poison Spit. The poison deals 0 plus 0.5 damage per rank. So essentially this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, or 8 I guess. 8 divided by 2, that's 4 bonus damage at Master Sergeant. So at the low ranks, it won't have any bonus damage, but at max rank, it's going to have a 4 damage poison tick. That's very high. Plus 10% of the target's HP, rounded up. So this is an excellent perk for dealing with boss units. It does not affect Chosen. The 10% I believe don't work on the Chosen, but everything else does though. Damage based on max HP is reduced to a quarter. Oh, okay, so it does work against the Chosen, but it's down to a quarter, and does not apply against the alien rulers. The poison reduces mobility by 4 and aim by 20, lasts for 3 turns. Poison is affected by enhanced poison and has a 3.5 meter radius. So it's about the same size as the regular poison spit that Vipers have. There is a bit of a nerf to this. It does not create the poison cloud that the enemies have, and that's because the enemy AI tends to break down whenever it's inside of a poison cloud. The Chosen just end up choosing not to do anything and just standing there because they don't want to be afflicted by more poison and all that other nonsense. So they nerfed it by just removing the poison cloud. And then finally down here, all the Vipers get this ability called Stock Bash. It's not something particularly powerful. It's like a one action thingy, but it's a free bit of damage if the enemies are standing next to you. Sorry, I'm like stuttering right now because I've just been talking for so long. Alright. Anyways, let's look at their perks up here. So there is one particular perk that I think stands out among the rest, and then I will go through the other perk, but that is going to be this line down here. So this is going to be the stealth build on the snake. It's going to start off with Stalker. While you're concealed, you get bonus aim and movement. Covert, you're harder to see. Phantom, when the squad is revealed, this soldier remained concealed. Shadow Strike, while concealed, gain bonus 50 aim and 50% critical hit chance when attacking enemies. This is a very, very powerful perk. To give you an idea of how powerful this is, most of the time when you're flanking an enemy with this soldier, you're gonna have like maybe a 70% chance to hit depending on your distance, and maybe like a 50% chance to crit. When you have Shadow Strike selected, it's just an automatic hit and an automatic crit from just about any range with your SMG. It's very, very powerful. Assassin, gain concealment after killing a flanked or uncovered enemy with your SMG. Can activate 1 time per turn. Oh, so now, here, this is kind of when this build starts coming together now. So, picture this, okay? Your team's in combat, but you have your snake in stealth. Now, normally when you have a stealth unit, if you want them to participate in combat, you have to give up their stealth. So that's kind of the trade-off that you have to go with. You either lose your stealth and have an extra hand to fight with, or you're playing down a soldier, but you can scout with the soldier. Now you have a way to scout with the soldier and kill things. This soldier is going to be running behind the enemy lines, getting 100% hit and crits on the enemies, and their job is to mop up enemies so they can proc their assassin ability and just automatically get a free stealth right back up. And basically, they're just going to keep on finishing off one enemy every single round, just kind of hunting enemies down, hunt down any stragglers that might have ran out into the fog where you can't chase. And that's kind of the crux of this build. You get access to Deadeye next. Take a shot with a small aim penalty for a significant damage boost. And the exact numbers of this is a 15% hit chance reduction, but an increase of base damage by 50%. Combo this with Shadow Strike and Assassin, and you're getting big hits off. Now, you won't even need to have enemies get weakened down. Now you can actually kill enemies yourself. And this is further compounded by Dead of Night. Gain plus 100% crit chance against enemies that do not see you, and you gain plus 1 crit damage for every 20% of crit chance above 100%. You're gonna have 150% crit chance naturally with Shadow Strike and Dead of Night. Combined with your flanking bonuses, you're gonna have like 200% crit chance against your enemies. And yeah, that's gonna be 5 bonus crit damage against everything that you shoot at. This is like the perfect assassin snake, very powerful and capable of maintaining stealth. This is like the perfect kind of stealth unit that you would want. A stealth unit that can act as eyes, make sure your team doesn't activate more stuff, but still capable of just killing things with massive raw damage. It's a very, very powerful unit. Now then, we can look at some of their other alternatives in case you want to kind of mix and match this build a bit. So, on Lance Corporal, they get Maim. If you feel like you don't need the extra mobility and the extra aim, you can opt to take Maim. However, if you do take Maim and you don't kill the enemies with it, which is kind of the point, right? You're not killing the enemies, but you're not letting them move. If you do that, though, then you're going to lose your concealment. So, you can regain your concealment with Assassin, but you can no longer really use Shadow Strike, and you can't really use Dead of Night if you're planning on doing this type of build. So unfortunately, Maim kind of hurts the theming of this build, but it's there if you want it. The other perk over here is Center Mass for bonus damage. Now early on, plus 10 aim is a decent amount, but plus 1 damage is raw numbers, right? Like you can always boost your aim up by positioning, but you can never actually get more damage than your gun can provide unless you take this perk. Personally, I kind of like to have Center Mass just for that bonus damage, so I'm probably going to be taking this one instead of Stalker here. Next rank over here, we got Predator and Tongue Grab. Now, Tongue Grab is kind of an interesting one. It's kind of a bread and butter of snakes. The Sidewinder is a smaller variant of snake, so it can't actually bind enemies, but you can teach it how to do that if you really wanted to go back to the Viper roots. You can kind of have it learn things like Tongue Grab, you can have it increase its poison powers, and then it has more of a role similar to the standard Viper if you want to go that route. However, I think that's kind of a wasted opportunity to take advantage of all the stuff down here, so I'm going to be doing the Stealthy Snake. Now, over here, we have a difficult choice here. We can either pick Predator for the bonus aim and crit, or we can take Covert. Now, Covert is probably the slightly better option, but there is actually a huge amount of merit for Predator. 15% crit not only gets you closer to the 100% crit chance, and for more reliability before you actually reach Dead of Night. But once you do reach Dead of Night, that extra 15% crit chance brings you closer to getting an extra point of damage. So this is another case of just getting an actual raw number boost rather than having like convenience from concealment. However, Covert does have its value though. If you have Covert, you can get closer to the enemies for more reliable shots. Of course, that goes out the window once you hit Shadow Strike, then this becomes a little bit less relevant. I'm probably going to personally take Predator for our soldier for that increased hit chance and increased critical chance. Now over here, we have a couple of other options also. Good Eye. The Sidewinder's attacks ignore all dodge modifiers. This is a very good perk for reliability. Now, once you start getting to Dead of Night and Assassin and Shadow Strike, you're pretty much going to have 100% crit chance against everything you shoot at. So this is one of those things that kind of help tide you over until you get to it. But for the most part, Shadow Strike is like the next perk up, so I don't really think we will be needing Good Eye. I probably won't be taking that. The other option here is Sidewinder, allows the Sidewinder to evade a damaging attack and instantly gain a movement action. Same perk that Jane Kelly has. Now, since this thing is staying in stealth, it's pretty much never getting shot at. I will probably aim towards not picking this, just so we can get our immediate concealment and start getting Shadow Strike immediately. You can opt not to take Phantom and take like this for some defensive powers. However, if you do choose to do this, you're gonna have to get your first Assassin kill without the bonuses of Dead Eye and Shadow Strike, which can be kind of a pain depending on the mission that you're on. So I personally would opt to take Phantom myself personally. Next perk up here is gonna be Hunter's Instinct and Enhanced Poison. Now, I think Shadow Strike, if you're doing the stealth build, is mandatory, so for the most part, you can clear your head of wanting to take all this other stuff. Maybe if you have a really high aim Sidewinder and you're not afraid of not having Shadow Strike until Master Sergeant and you can just run Dead of Night, maybe there's like some argument for Hunter's Instinct, but really I don't think there is an argument for Hunter's Instinct. Shadow Strike is pretty much the only thing you would ever take here. The only time you would ever take Hunter's Instinct is if you're planning on doing a hit and run build, because with the hit and run build you don't get to maintain your concealment. The other option here is Enhanced Poison. It improves the Sidewinder's poison, increasing its duration, damage per turn, and aim and mobility penalties. So now, the Enhanced Poison will do naturally 1 to 3 damage, plus 0.5 per rank, and 18% of the target's max health. This is actually quite significant. If for some reason you really just want to have like a lot of percentage health damage against boss units, this is the way to go. If you don't have like any other variations of snakes and you really just want to have Enhanced Poison, you can do it. But for the most part, I think giving up on the stealth assassin type build on the snake is just kind of too much, you know? Like, you got a Sidewinder, you gotta use it for what it's meant for, right? Over here we got the hit and run. Assassin is kind of the bread and butter of this entire class's stealth build. You definitely want to take this. If you just want more damage output and you don't care about concealment, you can opt to take hit and run. This does actually do a decent amount of damage with all of this stuff tied to it. The other option you have is Neurotoxin. Improves the Sidewinder's poison, causing it to disorient targets on initial application. Reduces the cooldown of Poison Spit by 3 turns. This is actually somewhat interesting. Poison Spit has a 6-turn cooldown, so now you can use it every 2 turns, I think is how it's calculated. Every 2 turns you can spit really powerful disorienting poison. That's honestly not bad. I think if it weren't competing with such good perks down here, I would possibly consider the poison build, but unfortunately it's competing with all this stuff down here, so I don't think we can ever justify taking this other stuff here. Vicious Bite. Bite any enemy within blue movement range. Deals damage, inflicts poison, and ruptures the target. Costs a single action and doesn't end the turn. Has a 5-turn cooldown and cannot target robots and environmental objects. So this is sort of an anti-organic type build now. So if you're opting not to take the stealth build, you can be anti-organic enemy units, take things like enhanced poison, neurotoxin, and just make this thing into like a biter. However, this thing does have a 5-turn cooldown, and Poison Spit does have a really long cooldown. I think if there was a way to start applying poison every single round, then this might have a bit of merit over the stealth build. But if you really do want poison, I don't think this is a bad build. I think overall this is one of the better poison afflictors out there in the game, if you do want to have that. Disabling Shot is the other perk over here. Disabling Shot's interesting because with Dead of Night, you're guaranteed to get your stun. Now, unfortunately, this means you won't be able to go back into concealment, but it does give this unit a way to support versus boss units. There's actually merit to taking this. Now, it does mean you have to get your assassin back, like your concealment back, without using your stealth bonuses. With enough team support, like your team can whittle a guy down to 1 HP, this guy should be able to handle that. But if you want the convenience and the damage output of being able to just kill things really, really hard while you're in stealth, this is the way to go. But if boss units are something that really scare you, Disabling Shot is another great option to pick. Finally down here we have things like Gore and Butcher. Butcher I think is meant for the hit and run build, and this can actually do a lot of damage, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, it's boring, I guess you could say. Like, there's a lot of units out there that know how to move up, shoot an enemy twice for lots of damage. This is not really a unique thing to the Snake. It does this slightly uniquely because it has Shadow Step, it has like Vicious Bite if you want to use that, but for the most part it's not like particularly special, being able to do lots of damage per multi-shot on a flank. If you're lacking this type of unit for your team, you can take this, but it's not really something that's super necessary in my opinion. Final option is Gore. Killing an enemy has a chance to panic some of the nearby organic enemies. Depending on the hit chance of this, this can be considered really good. The panic chance is rank times 8% plus damage times 2% plus max HP times 1% minus enemy will, where rank equals soldier's rank. If I knew how to do the math for this, I would have to like sit down and actually do the napkin math for this, but for the most part, we're probably not taking this. We're taking Dead of Night so we can kill things. So this is going to be the build that we're going to go with. Let's take a look down here just to see if there's anything down here that might change our minds. So this soldier can get access to Ghostwalker. I think that's good if you need to get close to an enemy. I could take Ghostwalker over Covert, and that's kind of a nice thing to have. Tracking is not a bad one either. This person is serving as a kind of support unit. I would say this is not a bad choice at all. And then finally, we're going to have access to Disarming Shot, Reconnoiter. Slayer Serum Bite. I think this is a reference to D&D. With extensive meld modifications, Vipers can mutate additional glands for producing various chemical agents. This Viper can produce a combat drug that can be forcefully injected into our troops. Slayer Serum provides plus 15 aim and plus 15 crit chance for 2 turns every 5 turns. Only costs 1 action point. If the Viper has access to the friendly tongue pull, you can pull soldiers to the Viper instead. Very interesting perk down here. This turns this guy into sort of a support unit, kind of. Plus 15 aim and crit chance for an ally is actually quite powerful. So basically, you have it for 2 turns, and then you don't have it for 3 turns. Interesting. I might consider taking this. I've seen this perk a few times before in other classes, and I've been wanting to try it out, but I've just never really gotten a chance to really go for it. I might consider it. I might. Those encounters. Once per turn, gain a bonus action. You know, if you ever wanted to do a multi-shot perk, we do have close encounters and hit and run. I don't believe they work together, though. But if we do take close encounters, we can actually get 2 shots off with Assassin, provided we can get close to our enemies. That's an interesting concept for a build. We also get Disarming Shot over here. I think I'm pretty much set in how I want to build the soldier, so before the only real choice for me was Disabling Shot and Deadeye. Now that we have Disarming Shot, which isn't as good as Disabling Shot, but it does something similar, now I can probably just rest comfortably knowing that I have a soldier that has both Deadeye and a way to support the team. The other way I can set this up is I can also choose to go, Reconnoiter? Reconnoiter is actually a very interesting perk. Every 4 turns as a free action, you can use a battle scanner. Does not require or consume any actual equipped battle scanners. So one of the things about battle scanners is that they take up a slot, and although the vision that they provide is valuable, it's not as valuable in timed missions where you just need to constantly be moving forward, and you can't really waste actions standing back throwing your battle scanners. It's good on timed missions, especially if you have a sniper to try to take advantage of the battle scan. But for the most part, you wouldn't really take it just because the item itself wasn't as useful, just having more armor, more ammunition, more type of stuff. This is a free one, and it's a thing that you never run out of. Every 4 turns, you just get to throw one for free. There's actually a lot of value in this, and if I'm planning on turning the soldier into kind of a scouting soldier, I can opt to take Reconnoiter and just have this person be like a full support type of unit, with the ability to kill one thing every single round. I think we're gonna do something similar to this. This is like 35 points. I could also take this, and that would be 40 points exactly. I think I'll do the 40 points one. It's a little bit more value with our soldier points. Alright, now enough talking about the soldier. We have done just way too much of that. Let us go ahead into the Geoscape, shall we? Alright then, here we are in the Geoscape, and this is going to be the thing that's really different for you people who played vanilla. For those of you guys who have played Long War, you'll be right at home with how all of this functions. So over here, you're going to see we have Haven Management. It's going to explain everything to you, so if you don't want to read, you can listen to me, or if you want to read yourself, you can go into a game and play it out yourselves. But here we are. We've got 6 people over here. Now, each of these are resistance recruits. These are basically like rebels that are on our side, but they're not part of XCOM, and they can do different jobs. So as you can see over here, there are going to be 4 jobs. The first job, this is the most important one. This gives us intel, and this contributes to our mission finding power. You want this number to be as high as possible. When you first start off playing Long War, you have no idea what any of this stuff does. I'm just going to tell you the best thing that you can do. Keep everyone on intel. This not only slowly generates more intel as you scan, but it is also the key to finding missions. And missions are what's going to give you EXP, advance the plot, advance the story, advance your team, give you more resources. You always want to be finding more missions. So if finding missions is so important, what are the other jobs for then? Well, you can go into hiding. If you're going into hiding, that means you're not going to be generating any suspicion from Advent, which I will be explaining a little bit more as we go on. The other job over here is going to be supply. If we switch everyone to supply, now we'll have income every single supply drop. But we're not going to be doing that. I'll explain a little bit more about that too. Recruiting is the final one that you can do. Days per recruit, 4.6. So basically, if you set this up with more people on recruiting, then you can get more rebels. This is not a bad one to do, but overall, it's better to stay on intel so you can actually find missions. There are missions that will give you more recruits, so the only time you would ever be doing the recruit job is if you have a separate region that you don't need to find missions in, and you just want to have them passively recruiting without actual input. But for now, we're just going to keep everyone here. Now, Haven Advisors over here. You can apply 3 types of Haven Advisors. The best variation of Haven Advisor to give in the early game is always just an XCOM soldier. And the XCOM soldier advising is good because they apply more recruit. So see how, if I don't have a person here, we're not getting any recruiting. If I put Jane Kelly or just anyone in, we're going to start getting more recruits. Now, there is a little bit more than just for the recruit purposes. When you have a person in here and this haven gets attacked, if there's a haven invasion or a retaliation, data tap, or whatever, then this person will be able to participate on that mission. So you get an extra hand to kind of back up your people as a haven advisor. Not only that, some of these guys might end up being faceless. Very exciting, right? So as you guys have seen from vanilla, faceless are kind of regular people that disguise themselves, but they're actually aliens, pink goopy monsters that kill you. Now, if one of these guys is a faceless, they may transform during certain missions within this region when they're participating. So that's one thing. Another thing is that they actively hinder the jobs that you're doing right now. So for example, if we're doing supplies, they're going to steal supplies. If they're doing intel, they're going to make it a little bit tougher to find intel. So it's very important that you find any faceless in here. And as long as you have a haven advisor in here, they will be able to find a faceless for you. It has to be a soldier, it can't be the other stuff. Now, you can also put an engineer in here. Engineer is kind of like the second thing that you might put in here. And this gives you a little bit more supply. They increase the efficiency of the supply job. And scientists will increase the efficiency of the intel job. Now, we have neither of those, and the best option is soldiers right now. We're just going to start with that. Now, over here, you're going to see some numbers here, and you're going to see all sorts of icons. I'll go through the stuff that you guys need to understand. So strength represents how many legions of Advent there are in a region. Right now, the number is 2. I think generally a good rule of thumb is 4 and below is very reasonable for the player to do. You can do missions in regions of strength 4 and below. In the late game, when you get much stronger soldiers, you can do missions in the higher strength regions, but for now, you want to keep it low, and you want to just try to avoid letting Advent get eyes on you right now. Force level just represents the enemy's research in a sense. This is something that just goes up as the game progresses. You don't really interact with force level. At certain force levels, like for example, I think force level 5 or something, certain types of enemies show up. But basically, enemy technology increases as this goes up, so you just want to keep an eye on this for certain benchmarks. The V over here represents vigilance. So strength is how much strength is actually in this region, how many legions of Advent are in here. Vigilance is how much they want in here. Every time you complete a mission or you do something to bother Advent in a region, their vigilance goes up. And so, for example, if I start doing a bunch of missions, the vigilance might raise up to 5. That means they want to have 5 points of strength in here. And of course, once strength raises too high, you can no longer do missions safely because the missions get too hard. And so, what you'll want to do is you're going to want to contact more regions around the globe. That way, you'll have low strength regions to do missions in at all times. And it's going to eventually evolve into this little game of cat and mouse where Advent's constantly trying to send more legions into the regions that you're active in, and then you're going to put everyone in those regions into hiding or do a different job and run over to a safe place to do missions. And this is going to be where the strategic layer starts to get more complicated. It's not like vanilla XCOM where you're just hitting the scan button and everything just gets handed to you on a silver platter and you just get more missions. You actually have to earn your missions. You have to like do things with your soldiers and kind of juggle between how much income you want, how much intel you want, and how much recruiting you want. Personally, I think the optimized strat is just intel on everything until you've liberated a region. And liberation is going to be a very important aspect of the game. So I think what I'll do for now, though, is instead of just info dumping all of that on you guys, because I've already been making this entire video into an info dump, what we're going to do is we're just going to start scanning ahead, because we've pretty much done everything we needed to do. We have a Haven Advisor in here, everyone's on intel. We're going to look for our very first mission. So these guys are just going to be looking for a mission for us to do. And there we go, first mission has been discovered. Now, this is going to look very complex, but I'm going to try to give it to you guys in a way that makes sense. So first, we have a type of mission. Here's the reward, here's the objective. This is a rescue recruits mission, which is a very good one to have early on. We get to have ourselves some more personnel. So anytime you see resistance personnel down here, that's essentially going to be more of these guys. You want more of these guys so they can do more stuff. You can get up to 13 of these guys in a region at a time, and they can all do stuff. Now, over here, you're going to see a mission expiration. This is very important. A rule of thumb is that 6 days is the amount that you want for a mission that is doable without having to spend other resources on it. So 6 days is kind of like the default time that you would want to have. Over here, this is going to be the number of enemies on the mission, 7 to 9. Ignore the 7, it's almost always 8 to 9 on these types of missions, but there's like one type of mission where there can be 7 enemies on it, but for the most part, just imagine it's 8 to 9 enemies on pretty much all of these. Now, how do you gear up your squad? Well, let's take a look over here. 8 to 9 enemies. What is considered like an easy mission? What is considered a hard mission? How many people do I send in? Well, it's giving us 6 slots. Do we send in all 6 people? Do we send in like more or less? The rule of thumb is, in the early game, the number of XCOM to enemy units, you want it to be 1 to 2. So for every 1 XCOM unit, there will be 2 enemies on it. I try to round it up, so for a minimal 7 to 9 enemy missions, we assume there will be 9 enemies on the mission, which means you want 4.5 XCOM soldiers, rounded up, that's 5. 5 seems to be the magic number to keep the mission easy enough that you can do it, but not so much that you're committing too many units to one mission that you can't run other missions. So here we're going to start loading up our soldiers. I'm going to bring maybe 1 soldier over here to kind of guide the rookies, and the rest of these guys will probably end up just being rookies. I'm going to save this person over here, and probably this person over here to be trained up in the GTS for my own reasons. I'll explain that in just a bit. But yeah, for the most part, we're just going to start slapping random soldiers down. So let's just get a bunch of rookies trained up. This is an excellent opportunity to train up all of our rookies. Definitely do not want to pass up on this. This guy's mobility is really low, so I'm probably going to turn him into a stationary unit, kind of like a sniper of some sort. And this guy's accuracy is quite high. I might consider turning him into a sniper with the GTS. Just do this for now, though. Alright. Now, I said earlier that I only want to bring 5, but in the early game, you can bring more if you can fit them in. Now, as you guys can see, as we start slapping on more soldiers, we're going to have a max infiltration here. So, let me clear the squad again. So as you guys can see over here, right? Mission expiration is 7 days, 17 hours. When I put a person down, now it requires... ignore the boosted for now, just look at the current and expected. So basically, this is telling us that it takes 4 days to infiltrate this guy into this mission. Basically, get into the enemy lines, safely get them in, and get them out, basically. This is just... use your imagination on how you want to headcanon all of this. But basically, it takes 4 days to get this 1 soldier in there. This number can be changed based on the amount of equipment they have. So for example, if I take this off, you'll notice that now it takes only 3 days and 17 hours. So the type of equipment that you have on your soldiers also matters. More heaviness on your soldiers in general equates to longer infiltration times. And of course, more people will also contribute to the infiltration timer. And what we're going to do right now is we're just going to slowly throw in more people. As you'll see, we can keep on throwing in more people here until we get as close to 100% as possible. Now, at 100% infiltration, we reach the baseline, 7 to 9. If we start infiltrating with more people, so some missions you're allowed to put more than 6 people on it, if we start infiltrating with more people and it goes down below that number to like 80% only or 70% infiltration, we can't fully infiltrate it. Certain penalties will start happening with that. First of all, the mission will get tougher, so instead of just 7 to 9 enemies, we might see 10 to 12, we might see 13 to 15 enemies. We're going to start seeing a lot more enemies on these missions, and that's going to start messing with the ratio a bit. Another thing is that certain penalties will start happening. For example, you won't start with concealment if you go above 100%. So try very hard to stay within 100% if possible. If you don't know what you're doing, if you have a plan, of course you can, but if you're not sure what you're doing, it's probably not the best idea to infiltrate below 100%. Now, if a mission is tougher, so right now minimal is like the lowest amount of enemies you can get, but for example, if a mission has like more enemies on it, like let's say a mission has 20 enemies on it, and you just don't want to deal with 20 enemies, you can over-infiltrate. Hitting 125% infiltration will reduce the enemy count by 2, hitting 150% infiltration will reduce the enemy count by another 2, and if you hit 200% infiltration, that will reduce the enemy count by a further 2 enemies. So you can actually over-infiltrate to reduce the enemy count by up to 6. but you can never go below the 7 to 9. Alright, so hopefully you guys understand a little bit about this. Now, that was a lot to take in, so if you need to like rewind the video and just hear the explanation again, feel free to do that. You can ask in the comments below if there's something I didn't cover here. But the Long War team has, or the Long War the Chosen team has done a really good job of making this very self-explanatory. All you gotta do is look at enemy activity, look at the base over here, and look at expected, okay? Expected is what your final number will be. So as long as your expected number is whatever you want it to be, in our case we want it to be minimal, with 6 soldiers on it, as long as we have that, then we're happy. That's all you gotta look for. In the early game, you pretty much want to do minimal on all of your missions if possible, especially when you're running a lot of rookies. Now for this team composition, I'm going to mostly be running assault rifles. It's a very simple weapon and it's very straightforward. There's no complexity that I have to go with using like the Marauder rifles and all that other stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a bunch of grenades on these rookies. Back when it was vanilla, I would actually just grab SMGs because I didn't care about the damage output. I just cared that they had the mobility to get around and throw grenades. But in Beyond Legendary, the enemies tend to have a lot of HP count, so I want to make sure that aside from just the grenades, I also have assault rifles. Okay, and that is going to be the squad. We got a 103% infiltration. This is going to be expected minimal. With 6 soldiers, 6 times 2, that means this team can take up to 12 enemies, and that is way less than 12, so we're happy. Let's send them out. Hope you guys enjoy the Bradford Ranger.
Sky Ranger deployed.
We're in the pipe. 5x5.
Now then, as you'll see here, the mission does not begin immediately. As we saw earlier, it takes time to infiltrate, and it will take 7 days and 10 hours until we reach the 100% infiltration. So, while they're out, we're going to be looking for other missions to do. And look at that, we got another mission. 6 days and 13 hours for an engineer and a point of interest. That is excellent stuff. Point of interest is just one of those things that you can scan at to get a little reward after the mission. Once again, this is another minimal mission, exactly what we're looking for. We'll have more chances to train up our rookies. I think for this mission over here, we're going to probably send in our Skirmisher. Maybe we'll send in one extra person just for safety. Maybe we'll bring in the Snake. And then let's hand them a couple more rookies here. I think we're going to go with these soldiers over here. They should be good. Generally, when it comes to rookies to randomly promote, I just kind of send all of them. If there's a person with particularly high stats of some sort, I consider turning them into a sharpshooter. Okay then, now, we cannot send in the full 6 squad. As you guys can see here, this is now an 87% max infiltration. For this one, we will now have 10 to 12 enemies on it. And technically this is still doable, but the ratio is a little bit off because normally when we calculate the ratio of XCOM to enemy units, we think about it in terms of fully ranked up soldiers like Skirmishers, Sidewinder, like actually promoted soldiers. These guys are rookies and they probably will not be able to operate on the same level as a higher ranked unit. So I'm going to take someone here off. That is going to keep this down at minimal, and that's exactly what we want. And now we can just give everyone over here some grenades. I'll maybe keep a flashbang or 2 just so we can take care of any sectoids that show up. A couple of flashbangs just to deal with sectoids. This team should be able to handle this mission though. Let's get them out there.
Ranger deployed.
Menace, ready to deploy.
Now, as you guys can see, we now have 2 missions running. And before, you guys might have been confused as to why we had 28 soldiers to start the entire campaign with. Like, you might be thinking, oh, isn't that overkill? But now you might start to understand. We need multiple squads doing multiple missions at the same time. And by doing this, it creates kind of a more interesting kind of gameplay where you're not only just sending people out and doing missions, but now there's a strategy to it. There's a strategic layer where you have to manage your troops. There's going to be times when people are wounded and tired, and there's going to be times where you just don't have enough people to run the missions you want. You're going to have to abort certain missions so you can send them on more higher priority missions. And this is where things start getting more exciting, right? And as we start contacting more regions, we're going to have a bigger and bigger board to play with. More and more people are going to be needed to complete more missions. Now, we found 2 missions. In the first supply drop month, there will only be 2 missions in a region at a time. Other missions will not spawn. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to set these guys on to recruit and let them do other jobs while this is infiltrating, and we're instead going to go do something else.
Avenger
For now,
plotting
I'm going to
new
go scan at
course.
the black market. This is the perfect opportunity to kind of just get that out of the way. And there we go. Let's scan over here and get to our black market.
Market is open.
Within the black market, the first thing that I tend to do is look for what they are buying. A lot of times they'll have things that they are highly interested in and want to buy. I kind of want to keep 1 drone wreck just in case I want to do drone research, so I'm going to hold on to that probably. In the early game, I'm down for selling just all but 1 trooper. And then maybe I'll sell off most of our basic weapon mods. Anything that's like a basic weapon mod or a basic PCS, I don't really bother doing. Like, 4 accuracy is kind of nice, but if I'm going to lose a mission because of 4 accuracy, then that's mostly on me and not on the fact that I sold this scope. Superior reflex stock is something that I don't really use too often, and it is worth quite a bit of supplies, so I'm probably just going to sell that for cash. In the early game of Beyond Legendary, you really got to look at what you're able to sell, what you can afford to get rid of, and just try to build up as much supplies as possible. Now down here we have a couple of soldiers that we can pick up. We can also buy an extra engineer, we can buy an extra scientist. In the early game, it is actually very worth it to go sell off an extra engine, or buy up an extra engineer, I think. By buying up this extra engineer, what we can now do is we can take that engineer and throw them inside of one of these spots. I'm thinking we might actually do the machinery if that doesn't take too long. That's 30 days, never mind. We'll probably just go for the debris then. So that's going to be 48 extra supplies for us before the month ends, and what I can do now is take those extra supplies once I get the extra 48 and buy myself an extra scientist. And by doing this, we kind of snowball ourselves by investing into our infrastructure even harder. Buying soldiers would be kind of nice. I might buy extra soldiers, although I'm not really in desperate need of buying squaddies right away. The next month you can actually buy Lance Corporals, so it might be better to actually just wait till the next month happens. Now then, these people are still infiltrating. It's going to be 4 days until this one's complete, 2 days until this one is ready. What we'll do now is we'll head to the Skirmisher HQ and just pass our time there, seeing as how there's nothing else to scan for on top of the region here. And here we go, Resistance Comms is complete.
Though it is intriguing.
Now, the next research, I tend to go straight into basic research. Basically, these are 2 repeatable researches, which are meant to be done when you're out of other things to do. However, right now, what this gives you is basically a free invisible scientist. So completing this is the equivalent of getting 1 bonus scientist. They will actually be there, like the basic research scientist will actually be affecting your research speed. The basic engineering research will give you an invisible engineer, but it will not actually give you an actual engineer to dig stuff out with, so this is a little bit less valuable. Now, there are requirements for personnel, so what that means is, for example, if I want to build magnetic weapons, I do need to have, I think it was 3 or 4 engineers and scientists. So this kind of helps us get closer to that number. And also this, even though it takes 28 days, that invests an extra scientist into your campaign, which means you'll actually reach your future researches a little bit sooner. I will be going straight into the basic research next.
Work begins immediately, Commander.
Kind of invest into our
Contact
research
you when I have a
infrastructure.
full report available.
It does delay our first weapon upgrade by a little bit, but not by so much that it's a problem. You can usually use ballistics for a decent amount of the
Dr.
early
Shen's
game.
Commander, we can now work.
Now
to
then,
establish
that research
contact
that we
with
finished
local
allows us to
resistance groups
contact the nearby
operating out of
spot.
regions around the globe.
The
Once we've
best
collected
place to
sufficient info
contact
make
is to
contact,
look at the
we'll need to
Haven
scan
number
the
over here.
target region for
This
the
number
armor
represents
system.
how many people are in this area, and we want to go towards the place that has the highest number of people.
Setting course
So down
for
here is
Mexico.
Haven 6, that's the most amount that you can get. I'm gonna head over here and try to make contact with these guys. It's gonna take a few more days. Unfortunately, I do not have that much time. I believe it takes about 1 day for these guys to switch back over to a different job. So within 1 day of completing this 100% infiltration, I'm going to be switching those guys back over to Intel.
Attempting to establish local regional contact.
There we go, switch them back over to Intel. And we're just going to keep on contacting down here until we hopefully get the second region. But first, we got our mission. So that is going to be the end for the strategic layer video. Next episode, we are going to be doing our second mission to get ourselves our very own engineer, our very first or second engineer, I guess, because technically we already bought one. But we're going to get another engineer, and we're going to train up a couple of rookies and get some EXP for these guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It's a very long one, but it's very informative, or at least I like to hope that it is informative for people. So don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you guys very much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.